It's a Thursday here on the Newsroom, the 21st of September. A warm welcome to the first hour of Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Presley.
I'm Kendall Mahamati.
Now, we will be with you until 12 o'clock today. Now, today we focus on the Moirani Commission, like we did yesterday as well, Kendall.
Yeah.
Now, the Moirani Commission are looking at the confessions thus far relating to the factors that fuel political killings in that province, and therefore we focus on this question.
Absolutely explosive matters we've been dealing with over the last few days. We want to find out from you, what do you make of the latest testimonies at the Moirani Commission?
I'd like to find out from you on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page, but let's take a look at what you are telling us on the Twitter handle. Send us a tweet. Let's take a look. Well, that's not yet. Let's take a look at the tweets. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Very weighty, mind-boggling, eyes tearing up. Keep your ear for more revelations. This is from Onuke.
This one coming from Gudani says, I enjoy the testimony of the former premier. It was like listening to Grandpa telling stories of the good old days before bedtime. Well, I tell you, it must have been a very scary story, Gudani, because what we heard yesterday was truly scary.
Absolutely.
These are some of your comments. Please keep them coming. We'll continue reading them, but we also focus on another issue. Of course, a big issue, especially in the Western Cape, people living on the coast. Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Nzeni Sokwana, he has met some of the fishing communities there to talk about transformation and, of course, sustainable fisheries.
Absolutely, and we want to find out from you, what do you think government should be doing to transform the fishing industry? A few options we've given you to work with. A, do you think they should do away with quotas? B, restrict monopolies? Or C, do you think they should support subsistence fishermen and women?
There you have it on your screen. 72 votes in, Kendall, and 23 hours left for you to vote. 25% of you are saying we need to do away with these quotas. 56% says restrict the monopolies. That's the biggest problem that you've identified, because that is the big companies that are getting the bigger quotas. And 19% says that we should support subsistence fisheries. Those are people living next to the coast, living on the beach, trying to catch.
Once again, the issue of monopoly is coming up, even in this industry.
Yes, there you are. Gidani says, look, they have to do something about these giant companies that control it all, talking about monopolies, and then give more freedom to the local fishers.
Onuke comes in and says, good funding will help.
Well, there is the ocean economy that they're going to look at, and of course we have a number of role players that we're going to speak to today, so you have to stay tuned about this issue. It's one of our burning topics. But we had a champion last year, Wits.
Yes, first time in their history, in their long illustrious history, that they've actually become champions. But now they're struggling. They've played 8 matches and not won a single one. This is across all competitions. There
is some concern there, because what has happened since last year when they were the champions?
Yeah.
That's why we're asking this question. Why is Wits doing so badly this season? We'd like to find out from you, all the coaches out there, because we know that South Africa has got 50 million coaches.
As you can tell, Gavin Hunt can't figure it out himself. Asking the heavens to help him with that answer. What are you saying to us?
Do we need divine intervention? Well, Onuka says, low commitment and interest. Sports is you give your best, you get rewarded. No magic in sport.
Couldn't agree more. Michael Bighamstoller says they're still celebrating. That's the first thing. Second is they replaced a lot of youngsters with senior citizens. And 3, everyone is gunning for them. That's the perks of being a champion.
Well, if you replace your younger players with pensioners, then you have a problem. I mean, we've seen it with some other teams as well. Those are your comments. Please keep them coming. But right now, let's get down to business and take a look at your headlines. Gauteng schools have witnessed a number of shocking incidents in recent weeks. 13-year-old boy died after being subjected to continuous physical bullying at schools at the school in Benoni. The Moirani Commission of Inquiry continues today with testimony from the SACP, the South African Communist Party. And President Jacob Zuma has called for the need to eliminate weapons of mass destruction, close the gap between the rich and the poor, fight illicit financial outflows, especially from Africa, and resolve the conflicts here on the continent. And also restrain the Korean Peninsula, and for countries to honor the Paris Climate Agreement. Those are some of the things that the President spoke about. Those are your headlines. But before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports field.
Elvis, thank you very much. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
Through the legs. Manzini! Oh, it's a cracker! Beautifully done in the finish of the outstanding pass.
Defending champions Bidvest's terrible start to the season continues as they slump to another defeat, this time to PSL returnees Amazulu, who humiliate them with a 3-0 thrashing in Umlazi. And in the wake of a record 57-0 loss, Alistair Coutier drops Francois Hougaard, and he calls up veteran flanker Francois Lowe. Stuart Baxter announces the inclusion of Pagamani Mahlambi, Dino Ndlovu and Percy Tau in the squad to face the Burkinabe next month. All this and more I've got for you later on in the Sports Bulletin. Do stay with us as we've got a whole lot more. But Elvis has got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. President Jacob Zuma has made a clarion call to world leaders to sign a treaty that seeks to ban the use of nuclear weapons. The president was addressing the UN General Assembly in New York. He also spoke of the need to resolve conflicts in Africa and for countries to honor the Paris Climate Agreement.
Day 2 of the UN debate, President Zuma took to the podium, getting straight to the point. He called on countries to sign a treaty which bans the use of nuclear weapons. A day earlier, US President Donald Trump threatened to destroy North Korea if it continues to pose a threat.
As a country that voluntarily dismantled its nuclear weapons program, South Africa is of the firm view that there are no safe hands for weapons of mass destruction.
The president also warned that if the Paris climate deal was not implemented, generations would suffer untold consequences.
We should resist all efforts to unravel and undermine the Paris Agreement.
The conflict in Libya and efforts to resolve it also getting the spotlight. President Zuma then touched on the illicit financial outflows from Africa and efforts to resolve conflicts on the continent.
We therefore welcome the UN General Assembly's adoption of the resolution on promoting international cooperation to combat illicit financial flows, which is a preliminary step towards a global architecture to tackle the scourge and impacts of illicit financial flows.
With the gap widening between the rich and poor, the situation could no longer be allowed to continue.
We need the political will and commitment from global leaders to address the challenges and obstacles posed by this untransformed structure of the global economy if we hope to achieve the goals and ambitions of Agenda 2030.
The reform of the UN, not forgotten. President Zuma's speech dealt with all key issues affecting the globe. This being a reminder to the world leaders that solutions, while hard to find, are still in their hands. Mzwandi Lembeje, SABC News, New York.
Now here at home, former KwaZulu-Natal Premier Senzo Mchunu has called on the African National Congress to get its house in order if it does not want to lose the next elections. Mchunu was also the party's provincial chairperson before losing to Sihle Zikalala in 2015. So he says that corruption and infighting within the party will result in the loss of votes come next election. He was testifying before the Moerani Commission of Inquiry in Durban. The commission continues today with testimony from the South African Communist Party.
I say the ANC must accept responsibility. That's the first thing that we need to do. Accept that we are responsible for this, directly or indirectly. And when we accept this responsibility with that as an organization, we then have to act accordingly.
Factionalism, the selection of councillors, and the manipulation of branches. These, according to Mkhunu, are the main drivers of internal conflicts in the ANC. He says greed and the hunger for power are at the core.
The other factor in the competition is the syndrome, which we can call my or our turn to eat has come. There is that syndrome.
Mkhunu says he attended the commission in his personal capacity. He says there should be talks between opposing factions in the ANC to avoid deadly conflicts.
There be a dialogue, maybe once a year or maybe once in 2 years, so that we bury deeper and deeper all these things that have happened in the past.
The commission is investigating politically related killings from 2011. Sibonga Konkambata, SABC News, Durban.
Explosive testimony, rather. So we're asking you, what do you make of the latest testimonies at the Moerane Commission? The South African Communist Party will continue today with their testimony at the Moerane Commission, and we want to know from you, what do you make of it so far? Let me know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. Let's now continue with more news. Former African Union Commission Chairperson Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for you, is likely to be sworn in today as a Member of Parliament. Now, parliamentary sources has confirmed that that is likely to happen today. There has been speculation that President Jacob Zuma could reshuffle his cabinet to accommodate Dlamini Zuma after she has been sworn in as an MP. Dlamini Zuma and ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa are seen as the front-runners to succeed Zuma as the ANC president in December. But as you heard the other day from Matthew Sposa, another one of the 7 runners for the ANC president, it's not just the 2 of them. There's more. Moving on now, Business Unity South Africa, BUSA, says that KPMG must act quickly to investigate claims of corruption if it hopes to restore confidence in the business. The audit firm is still under immense pressure over the scandal linked to its role in assisting companies linked to the Gupta family, as well as the South African Revenue Services. KPMG has been accused of facilitating the theft of taxpayers' money by providing clean orders to Gupta-linked entities. It has denied that any of its staff members were involved in corruption or criminal activity. KPMG has also withdrawn parts of its report into the so-called rogue unit at SARS. It's admitted that the standards associated with these audits fell short. Last week, it announced wide-ranging measures to clean house after a probe by the company's international unit. Despite these efforts, a couple of companies, including Sasfin, have ended their services with KPMG.
The developments in our country in the last few years, given the impact that the Gupta family in this case has had, given the endemic corruption that we are facing in the country at the moment, we believe that KPMG should actually come out far more forcefully and far more clearly to say that this is the damage that they caused. So the bottom line is that their SARS report led to the cleaning out of SARS of some critical individuals who were senior people at SARS and who were doing a pretty good job at SARS.
Well, that's the news for now. Now today we're focusing on the fishing industry, as you know, and we would like to find out from you, how do you think government should transform the fishing industry? There's the poll on your screen right now, and let's take a look at your options. 1, do away with quotas. 2, restrict monopolies in the country. And number 3, support subsistence fisheries. Now, 19% of you are saying that we should support subsistence fisheries. 56% says restrict all those monopolies. And only 25% says that we need to do away with the quota system. Keep them coming and we'll read them as we continue, but you're also tweeting us on this matter. Let's take a look at what you are telling us on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. If there is any of those streets available right now, we'll take a look at them. Let's take a look here. This one from Monuki says, good funding will help the situation. Gadani says, look, they have to do something about these giant companies that control it all, and then give more freedom to the local fishers. He's talking about monopolies, and those monopolies to be disbanded. Well, keep them coming, people. We'll read them as we continue here today. Now, transformation and the sustainable allocation of fish stocks are among the issues thrashed out in meetings between fishermen and the Department of Fisheries this week. The Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Senzeni Zokwana, has met various leaders from the Western Cape's fishing communities.
The meeting was held following a memorandum handed over to the department in Cape Town last week. Small-scale fishermen claim that the current system has divided fishing villages who rely on the sea to provide for their families.
Our children are hungry. There's no work for our husbands. The big companies, they're raping our seas.
We want our resource back. So at the moment now we're fighting for a small scale.
Frustration over quota allocations for small-scale fishermen and the impact on their livelihoods has been well documented.
The South African fishing industry is most probably one of the most complex fishing industries in the world. We have 22 different sectors, fishing sectors in our country. Each sector is driven by a policy. Each policy has a set of permit conditions, and then you have your regulations. You have an overarching policy. Then you have the Marine Living Resources Act. You also have the small-scale fisheries policy, which has been gazetted in 2012. You have the interim relief dispensation, which is driven by an equality court ruling, and then you have subsistence fishing in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. To ask a fisherman to navigate through that, he himself needs a set of lawyers. So we have to ease access for our people.
Last week, violence erupted in Hout Bay. Residents took to the streets over quotas and what they say are regulations put in place by the department. They claim they are being overlooked in favour of bigger commercial companies.
We fight each other because some of us want to go work for them and some of us want them down. You see, because if we're going to get our way, we're going to go there and we're going to do what we must to get our rights.
There's people getting quotas, people that never worked on sea, people that never even know how to work in the, and most of them are not from Hout Bay. They're getting quotas. When we try to get quotas, they turn us down.
The department has refuted allegations that the process which determines allocations has been completed.
The previous fishing season, for instance, of the lobster, the view was that we must cut the TAC by 34%, and that what was consulted upon with the stakeholders. And myself as the decision maker, I did not accept a 34% cut because you simply, when dealing with these issues, you're not just dealing with numbers, but you are dealing with livelihoods, you are dealing with people. So there's other issues that relate to socio-economic issues that you need to take into cognizance when you come to the final decision. So the final decision takes into account all of those issues, which was the basis that we decided not to cut the previous time by 34%. And at this stage, I can assure you, we have not reached the decision whether we will cut. So the protests around the TAC is a false thing, and it is unfortunately a highly premature issue because, as I say, there is no decision.
Traditional fishermen, however, insist that they're being marginalized.
They have allocated, they're giving us appeals till Thursday. Yes. So on appeals, so the people spend more money and still not get. We know this process already. Every year, every time when they allocate fishing rights, they say, okay, our allocations are not done yet, we must appeal, but when we appeal, we must spend more money that the people don't have.
With their livelihoods hanging in the balance, small-scale fishers say their concerns must be dealt with as a matter of urgency. Vanessa Puna, SABC News, Cape Town.
Now, Hout Bay Fishers, the Community Trust, has confirmed that a meeting between the small-scale fishermen and the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries took place at the offices of the Minister, Senzeni Zokwana, in Parliament. Last week, as you can recall, fishermen were up in arms over the allocation of fishing rights to commercial and recreational sectors, while the small and subsistence fishermen are being ignored. Now, to talk to us about the protests and the problems experienced by the coastal fishing communities, we are joined in Cape Town by the Hout Bay community leader, Fidel Meter. Is it Meter or Meter? Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. It's Meter.
Meter, very good morning to you. So tell me first and foremostly, what are the problems that you've identified as the Hout Bay community there?
So we as a Hout Bay community, we look with the department saying now they haven't made the final decision when it comes to THC. We've heard this before. So we're saying, okay, if you're reducing the THC, replace it with something else. Because that THC that you're going to be taking away is going to create impoverishment again with the people that's been enjoying that stream. And then there's lots of other issues as well where huge companies get majority of the pie and then the smaller fishing villages right around the coast must fight for what's left over.
Mm-hmm. What are your demands then that have been put forward to the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Forestry and Fisheries?
Our demand is saying basically what you take away, replace it by something else.
And what would that something else be though?
Other streams of fishing industries, besides West Coast rock lobster, there's hake longline, there's other quotas as well that they can redistribute to the communities.
Now, you want also government to stop the review of the fishing rights allocation process. Why is that the case?
Because it's not, for us, it's not done fairly. Look at how much people on the coastlines don't have quotas.
How does the current allocation works for these communities? Please give us a breakdown.
They're talking about small-scale fishers for local communities. That's not even enough to sustain them. And the other thing is where the big companies get huge amounts of quotas, billions of rands, these people are still working 50, 100 years later, still in the same factory.
So are you then suggesting that government should minimize the quotas to big companies?
Yes, and give us small. Look, if you look in history, it's not the big companies sustaining the industry, it's all the smaller ones.
Mm-hmm. Then the question would be asked, why are you not forming cooperatives to talk with one strong voice to articulate your grievances to government?
We are, but we're saying the government should come out and assist us to create these cooperatives. Help the people, not all the people are literate.
Now
come out, do workshops, and actually do what you're saying. Help us create cooperatives. Help us explain to us and how we do this whole thing. Do it with us, take our hand and lead us. Don't just say things to get votes.
Mm-hmm. We have heard suggestions that the bigger organizations get 90% of the quotas and the communities, the small fishermen only get 10%. Is that correct? And how do you want to deal with that?
To be honest, they get majority of the pie. I wouldn't say 90%, but we would want the government to look at it, come out to our fishing communities, assist us in setting up businesses. Let us export our own fish, so we get paid in dollar and we earn more.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier you indicated that you sustain the industry, or are you assisting the, or are you sustaining the community? Which one is it, and which one is more prevalent?
Excuse me, just say that again.
Did you earlier say that you are sustaining the community or the industry?
The smaller sustains the industry.
How so?
Because it's more jobs and it's more families being fed.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have protested. You've chained yourself, apparently, the offices of the Department of Fisheries, and you've also met with the minister. Have you managed to drive your message home?
So, let's be honest, I have not met with the minister. That press releases or community leaders that are cherry-picked by government, where they don't have to come in and deal with the communities. That is where the miscommunication is coming in. If the government had come out to our communities and met with us, there would be know what's going on and giving the people what they want.
Mm-hmm. What do the people want? Just bigger quotas or equal quotas? What do they want?
They want equal quotas. They want to be able to sustain themselves. They want money to buy a house. At the moment in Hout Bay, you live in Hout Bay, you can't afford a house. Mm-hmm. And when people do build houses, police can break it down. That's because of the high unemployment rate.
So as the Hout Bay community, what is your next step now?
Our next step is we've given the department time to get back to us, and from there we'll work with them. We're saying take our hand and lead us We don't want to fight with you, but if the people need to fight for the basic human right to live, they are prepared to do that.
I thank you so much for your time. That was Fidel Meter. He's a member of the Hout Bay community there in Hout Bay, complaining about the issues confronting them in the fishing industry. Now we'll talk some more about this and of course the greater expanse of the fishing industry and what does it mean for the communities that are affected by the quotas. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back after that. But also remember that you can participate in our poll. If we can put up that poll just briefly so you can see where we are right now in terms of the numbers that we are asking you to participate in that poll to find out what should we do and how should government deal with this issue of fishing quotas. And of course, how do they deal with bigger companies? Let's take a look at the poll. 87 votes in. How should government transform the fishing industry? 26% says do away with the quotas. 56% says restrict the monopolies, and 18% says support subsistence fisheries. We'll come back to some of your comments in a short while.
Do you have a funeral policy?
No matter the sacrifices you've made or the hours you've worked, you can't always say yes. Avbob's Cashback Funeral Plan not only provides funeral insurance for your family, but also helps you to say yes to life's little extras more often. Because for every 5 claim-free years, you'll get your 5th year's premiums based on your monthly premium value paid back in cash. SMS cash to 41790 and we'll call you. Avbob, we're here for you.
SMS cash to 41790 and Avbob will contact you.
Entrepreneurship and taking charge of your own destiny is a mindset, and it's something that should start at a very young age.
I started when I was around about 3 or something, because I have a bunch of paintings in the office. I have a teacher that teaches me and my class how to do business, and he was the one who taught me.
Being an entrepreneur makes you money-wise.
Before everyone spent their money, I would sell the little things I painted, and I'd sell my drawings and stuff like that.
In business, it is important to keep record of all your transactions.
I have a passion and I love making anything, so I chose to make Play-Doh and I'm passionate about it.
Catch Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Fishing remains an essential activity for people living on South African coastlines. It's also a very controversial issue. Most fishing communities, especially small-scale as well as subsistence fishers, feel that the current legislation and policies are not doing enough to empower them or to correct the past imbalances. In 2015 and 2016, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries embarked on the 2015-16 fishing rights allocation process, which is currently underway in 10 fishing sectors. Now, last week, a protest by fishermen over fishing quotas turned violent in Hout Bay. 2 people were injured, including a 14-year-old boy. The chairperson of the South African United Fishing Front, Pedro Garcia, is in Cape Town in our studios there to talk to us about the challenges in the fishing industry. Mr. Garcia, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much.
First and foremostly, tell me, what is the main reason behind the protest that turned violent?
The protest that had turned violent in Hout Bay, although it was initiated by the fishermen in that area, had been compounded by a number of other local issues, service delivery, housing, had almost piggybacked on what the fishermen had initiated in Hout Bay. It wasn't a fishing protest per se at the end of the day. It was just compounded by other local issues in Hout Bay.
But talk to us about the challenges facing the fishing industry, especially subsistence fishers. fishermen, rather?
I think there has to be a clear understanding of how the South African fishing industry really works. It is most probably one of the most complex industries, not just in Africa, but in the world, in terms of the division of rights allocations. We have what they call a nearshore and offshore sector, which is commercial. Then we have an interim relief dispensation, which is currently in effect, it's a ruling from the Equality Court in 2007. Then we have subsistence fishing in KwaZulu-Natal and in the Eastern Cape. And then we also have a small-scale fisheries policy, which has been gazetted in 2012 and must still be implemented. So we're sitting with a wide range of challenges. Each sector has its own policy. Each policy has its own set of permit conditions. And then, of course, you're now dealing with court orders, which is now compelling the department to bring about interim relief until such time that a small-scale policy can be implemented. The challenges now, of course, is that the majority of the fishing rights allocations has already taken place, which means that key resources within the fishing industry which are required to create a small-scale policy which could make economic sense to our people is almost impossible now. There are a number of species which are key to this basket, which will now be tied up for a good couple of years, which means that there will be another waiting period. Now, the department has acknowledged that they may have missed an opportunity, but that does not remedy the situation. We have burning issues which needs to be addressed immediately. It has now been more than 10 years that people have been waiting for the small-scale policy to kick in. So what we are saying is that we need to find immediate solutions for some of the burning issues, and those burning issues include abject poverty within our communities, the social ills associated with that abject poverty, and taking it forward then. But in the meantime, until we can find a sustainable solution and implement a policy which can make economic sense to our people, we need to put, in that interim period, we need to put something in place which is going to make economic sense to our people.
What is that something that need to be put in place in the interim in order to make economic sense for the fishermen?
Well, we do have a court order that will remain in effect until the small-scale policy kicks in. So what we are saying is that we need to perhaps boost what we have already allocated to our people in the interim relief dispensation. Also in the subsistence fishing in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, we think there is an opportunity to boost that allocations without compromising our resources. I think one of the most important things in our memorandum and in our fight to bring about justice is that we also extremely concerned about the state of our natural resources in terms of having those resources available to future generations.
Should there be one policy in place that could accommodate commercial as well as subsistence as well as small-scale fishermen in the country then, sir?
Well, once again, going back to the complexities of the South African fishing industry, when you look at nearshore, you have nearshore fishers, we have interim relief fishers, we have fishers who have now been identified and verified for the small-scale fisheries policy, we have subsistence fishers, and perhaps once you just, for the purpose of this particular interview, is to cluster them all as nearshore, because all the participants come from the same communities, the fishing communities around our coast. So you have people who are in one town, who some of them will have nearshore commercial, some of them will have interim relief, others will be sitting with subsistence. So it's really a case of broadening divisions if we start allocating in one particular sector within that cluster and not looking after the other, because it's within the same community, and these divisions also causes a lot of unnecessary friction within our communities.
Now, on Sunday, you had a meeting with the minister. What came out of that meeting, and is that perhaps looking at the long-term solution?
Well, we were cautiously optimistic coming out of that particular meeting with the minister. And he has also already indicated that he will launch an immediate investigation into fronting and into the unfair practices which have taken place over the past few decades within the fishing industry. The Minister has also committed himself to eradicate corruption within the department, because that was also one of the concerns we had raised within our memorandum. He has also now given us the go-ahead to form certain committees that can address key issues within the fishing industry. But the challenge, once again, is that we are dealing with immediate issues that needs to be addressed.
Is that perhaps, from the Minister's perspective, or even from your perspective, a solution, that interim solution that you are seeking in order to make sure that it's socially and in fact financially viable for the communities?
Well, we have to find a solution for our communities. It's been years now, and we are dealing with a social structure which is collapsing because of the high levels of unemployment. When rights are taken away from our people and it is the only source of income and there is no alternatives within those communities, we are setting our communities up for failure, horrible failure. And this is exactly what is happening now. Now, we may argue the fact that there may not be enough resources. We may argue that we have initiatives like Pakisa, the maritime or the marine economy now, as oceans economy, as they're calling it now, and other alternatives that can be created. And in other words, in areas where you don't have alternative sources of income, is actually to create not a basket of species, but an income basket, so that they complement each other, so that they eventually you sit with an income for a normal family that can make economic sense. Just as an example, in the Eastern Cape, many people still have large tracts of land, but they are subsistence farmers. We need to add to that subsistence income, because as much as we're trying to uplift our communities, government at the same time also are delivering on their mandate in terms of providing basic services, housing, running water, electricity. Mm-hmm. But clearly somebody has to foot the bill as government delivers. And if you have a subsistence existence, there is no ways that you'll be able to foot that bill. So you're sitting with another challenge then. What we are saying is there are opportunities. All we're asking government is to listen to the NGOs, listen to the people that's at the grassroots level, listen to the fishermen. The indigenous and local knowledge has been ignored for too long. It's been regarded as being anecdotal. It's not being added or integrated into scientific knowledge in our country. There's that breach between the science and the communities, and we have to build a bridge there between arrogance and ignorance, where scientists view our communities as being ignorant, our communities are viewing the scientists as being arrogant. But collectively, we need to move forward, because then we can base a lot of the decisions around our resources on wisdom, a combination of knowledge and a combination of local and indigenous experience.
That makes a lot of
which we are not doing at this point in time. There are solutions out there. We need government to listen.
That makes a lot of sense to me, sir. But as the South African United Fishing Front, what is the next step now?
Well, we are dealing, one of the key issues that has also been highlighted within our memorandum is the current allocation of the West Coast rock lobster. Why there's so much emphasis on that is because it is one of the key species. It's a high-value species like abalone, which could contribute towards a basket of species which can make economic sense. Our challenge with that is that if the FRAP allocation is concluded, then it will take 15 years for us to remedy that. Communities simply don't have the money that big industry has to take government to court. And we don't want that type of confrontational approach to the challenges that we face as South Africans. What we are saying to the minister and to the DDG, excuse me, please, is that you do have an opportunity now. It has not been concluded. Suspend the West Coast rock lobster. Give it to our people. Take it away from the big companies. They've had it for decades. They've had the West Coast rock lobster. They have a number of other allocations as well. The argument is always from industry side that there will be job losses. The minister had argued successfully in the Viking case that although Viking may lose jobs in the hake inshore sector, they would be able to absorb it in other sectors in which they have also been allocated fishing rights. And because of those fishing rights, they are then in a position to absorb any job losses. The same applies to the West Coast rock lobster, which is now in the possession of the larger companies. Excuse me. We do not want to compromise the cutting of the resources. It is absolutely critical. We've ignored the 34% cut in West Coast rock lobster the previous season. There's now a proposed between 53 and 59% cut. We simply cannot ignore it, because even coming from a grassroots level, coming from the local fishermen around our coast who are harvesting West Coast rock lobster, there is an acknowledgement that there's been an annual reduction in the harvesting.
Yes.
So much so that when people do go out to again harvest West Coast rock lobster now, their operating expenses exceeds their income for the day, which creates a further problem and exacerbates the poaching issues, because people are now poaching in order just to operate viably on a daily basis. So we are not disputing the fact that our resources need to be protected one way or another. What we are saying is there is still an opportunity. If we cut from the big companies and keep the nearshore people as they are, then we will not have an issue.
Yes.
Big companies must come to the party. Not only do they own other fishing rights, but they also manipulate and monopolize the markets. They are at the high end of the value chain.
Mr. Garcia?
It is the marketers and the big companies who are literally sitting with the bulk of our South African fisheries resources. And just to put it quite plainly, 90% of our marine resources are being owned by big companies, while 90% of our people who are supposed to benefit from these resources are sitting with 10% or less.
I thank you so much for your time, sir, and good luck with the negotiations.
Thank you so very much.
That was the chairperson of the South African United Fishing Front, Pedro Garcia. Now, that discussion was yesterday. Of course, he had to leave Cape Town, and we had to record him in that discussion. So that's why we're asking you this question in our poll today. We'd like you to participate, because it's a burning issue for fishermen living on our shores today. And that's why we're putting up the poll. We want to find out from you, what do you make of it? What issues? How should government address the issue of quotas with the fishing community? Let's take a look at the poll. If we can put up that poll right now to take a look at that. How should the government transform the fishing industry? So far, 72 votes in. 56% of you are saying we should restrict the monopolies. 25 says that we should do away with quotas, and 19 says that we should support the subsistence fisheries. That's what they are calling for, the fishermen on the foreshore. So we'll take a look at your comments a little bit later. Right now, it's time to take a look at what is trending on Twitter. We start off with the hashtag Moerane Commission. Senzo Mchunu, former premier, spoke yesterday about the concept of it's my turn to eat, and that there are still many illegal firearms that are circulating in the province, and that this problem needs to be addressed with urgency. Then it looks like the ice has been broken for protest season. A student protest broke out at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology yesterday. Students set alight a staff room and a financial aid office. Hashtag CPUT, as you see there. Those are some of the pictures coming through. Well, what are they going to do to replace that? It's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, of rands rather, to replace that. Then moving to the United Nations General Assembly, from Trump to Mugabe, those who are less interested in the weighty affairs are finding some humor in the actions or speeches of the authorities. Now, this picture of the president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, sleeping, has gone viral at the UN. And moving further afield, around 230 people are believed to have died during the earthquake that struck Mexico. Rescue workers are trying to save children who are trapped in a school after parts of the building collapsed. Terrible situation there in Mexico. Hashtag Mexico earthquakes. And More drama. Hurricane Maria threatened to destroy Puerto Rico after it left a trail of destruction in Dominica and, of course, Dominican Republic, and some of the islands around there as well. Some of the pictures coming through there on Hurricane Maria. Look at the water. Now, a picture of the day comes from Fairouz Fakir, and this one is captioned. Financial aid offers Belleville campus today. Look at that. That's the CPUT protest in Cape Town. Now, a comment of the day comes from the issue block, who says that CPUT protests burning buildings make you a thug, not a revolutionary. Well, that's something to think about. Let's now take a look at what's happening in our courts, and we start off in Limpopo, where the police are expected to exhume the grave of two young sisters, or twin sisters rather, at Folodwe village outside Musina, as part of the body harvesting case. Now, 5 suspects were arrested earlier for allegedly digging up 2 graves in Tsitavata village outside Tuyando and selling the body parts to a traditional healer. Police dug up 2 graves earlier this month and found some body parts missing. Prime suspect Daniel Mpawe allegedly claims to have dug up his twin sister's grave. The suspects are applying for bail at the Mapuya Periodical Court. Then in the northwest, 4 suspects are expected to appear in the Tahung Magistrates Court for a bail application linked to the murder of a well-known funeral parlor owner, Keho Moditswe Sirei. The 4 suspects were arrested at Rooival village near Tahung 2 months ago. They allegedly shot and killed Keho Moditswe at his business premises. And in Mossel Bay, a couple convicted of running a multi-million rand pyramid scheme, Graham and Carolina Minnie, are expected to be sentenced in the Tembeletu Regional Court in George. They duped unsuspecting victims out of nearly 300 million rand between 2002 and 2009. Now, we will keep you updated on developments of these and more, so stay tuned. Let's now take a look at our newspapers from around the globe and some of the front pages. And we start off in Europe. The Times reports that Theresa May threatened last night to withhold tens of millions of pounds in British contributions to the United Nations as she warned of a crisis of faith in global bodies. Moving to New York, the Wall Street Journal says that rescue workers and volunteers work to find the living and the dead beneath rubble left by a 7.1 magnitude earthquake in Mexico. The death toll has risen to more than 200 people. And finally, in Iran, the Tehran Times reports that the Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council on Wednesday censured Donald Trump's speech at the UN General Assembly, describing it as an indication of the shallow understanding of international treaties. Trump's UN speech, hateful and absurd, they say. Those are your newspapers. Let's throw forward now, looking at tomorrow on the show here on the Newsroom. We'll be looking at the implications of the KPMG saga. The top 6 of KPMG, South Africa, have resigned after a damning internal investigation linked to the firm that did some work for the Guptas. So you don't want to miss that. Well, that's it for now. We'll take a short break, and your weather forecast is up next.
Thank you very much. Let's take a look at what's happening for today and for tomorrow in terms of your weather. We did have some isolated showers, especially here along the Western Cape. It is clearing for the first part of the day. Later on, we're expecting them, especially in places like the Free State, into the Eastern Cape, and later on in the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Otherwise, a partly cloudy day is expected for the rest of KZN province into Mpumalanga, where we did see some fog patches, but they're expected to clear before midday. The interior expecting clear skies over Gauteng northwest and most of Limpopo province, while it is still clear over most of Zambia, Botswana and Namibia. Angola in the northern parts is expecting some isolated showers, especially in the extreme northern parts later on today. Otherwise, clear skies for the rest of the continent. Into tomorrow, we're still expecting just isolated showers here along the coastal areas of Western Cape and Eastern Cape, and over the interior expecting isolated showers, but this will be much later on in the afternoon, and at around about 12 o'clock going around after midday. And looking at clear skies are expected for the Limpopo province, northwest, northern Cape. And of course, some partly cloudy weather is expected for the southern parts of Gauteng province. Otherwise, clear skies in Mozambique, Zambia, and Angola. We do have a warning for high FDI over the central part of the country. This includes places like Uppington, the whole of Northern Cape into parts of the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, including the western parts of Free State and Northwest Province. Your temperatures later on this afternoon, 32 for Bloemfontein, 26 in Durban, it's a bit warm, while Komani is very hot at 36 degrees Celsius. Springbok is also very hot at 30 degrees. Only partly cloudy weather is expected in Springbok, while Cape Town also sees partly cloudy weather for today with a high of 22. In the north, like I said, clear skies for most of Botswana into Zimbabwe as well, with highs of 29 if you're in Bulawayo, while Botswana stays hot, especially in Maun. It's been hot for the past couple of days and it's going to continue being hot. The eastern coastline, we're looking at places like Beira, expecting a high of 22. Cooler weather is expected in those areas, especially in places like Maputo, including places like Quilimane. Into the islands, we're expecting isolated showers in Victoria with a high of 30 in Moroni and partly cloudy weather. And looking at the DRC, we are expecting partly cloudy weather for most of the DRC, very isolated showers for the DRC, but the rainfall for today is expected in places like Kigali and of course the western part of the continent of Africa. Libreville peaking at 28 degrees, while Luanda is peaking at 27, expecting most of the day to be partly cloudy. There is a possibility of some thunderstorms much later on this afternoon. In the north, we're expecting some isolated showers, especially here in the central parts, but it's starting to become less in intensity. But tomorrow, we're expecting more intense storms, especially in places like the coastal areas of Nigeria into Mali. Those areas are expecting very strong coastal storms, while over the interior. And for Sudan, we're expecting only partly cloudy weather, with temperatures peaking at 38 if you're in Cairo, and Khartoum at 42 degrees. Looking at Agadez peaking at 39 degrees, very hot conditions into the interior places like Mali at 33, Niamey at 35. I'll leave your weather here for now. Remember, everywhere you go, take the weather with you.
The Pan-African Parliament, as a legislative body, could go a long way in continuing to promote women's rights in all African member states.
Moon will be elected president. A decisive win by him will provide much-needed stability in South Korea.
The Deputy President and the SADC Oversight Committee have been mandated to convene a multi-stakeholder national dialogue before elections.
5 teams are trapped in the relegation mud. These include Bloemfontein Celtic, 12th on the log, followed by Chippa United, Free State Stars and Baroka, who are second from the bottom, as well as Highlands Park, who have won only 4 matches.
We're on point with breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
We're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC. It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that. And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. It speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members, which will also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
All the voices of our citizens. Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it.
The Broadcast Act enjoins the SABC to constantly review its policies every 5 years. So this was tried in 2013, and last year when it was being implemented, certain changes were brought in that were not included in the public participation process, and ICASA then kicked the amendments out. So now we are faced with a situation where the policies that are in place are the policies of 2004. Those policies are okay in certain respects, but they don't take into consideration significant technological developments that have happened. The platforms that SABC operates on now are quite manifold, so we need to know how to deal with those things. But more than that, this is also an opportunity for everyone, all South Africans, because the SABC belongs to all of us, to make inputs about how they think the SABC should conduct itself in broadcasting material.
All right, so the review, it's not necessarily only based on the 90-10 local content like many people would think, and the banning of visuals that show protests. So it's a holistic review.
Yeah, in fact, those things were not really part of the policies, because they were just regulations that were imposed, even without board approval. And
what is it that you're looking for?
We want South Africans to say, for example, let's take the issue around violence. To what extent should the SABC be able to show violent scenes on our screens? Now, if we say we want them to go up to this point, to what extent does that become censorship? So the fine line that must define sufficient information for South Africans to see what is happening, and not too much encroachment to a point where you're denying South Africans the right to know what is actually happening. There are things like the display of dead bodies, for example, on our screens. Do South Africans think that that should happen if we are doing it? The policies deal also with educational matters. What kind of educational material do South Africans think the SABC as a public broadcaster should be broadcasting? Religious issues. We have a religious policy that is part of these policies. How do we deal with language issues? If we say only official languages, how do we deal with the Khoi and San and all the other languages in the country that are not deemed as official? All of those things, South Africans need to make their voices heard, and we'll be moving around the country, all provinces, to hear people.
When are you expecting the process to be completed?
Towards the end of August. Okay. We will complete the road shows, and then a process of collating all the information will begin. By that time, the interim board, us, will be making our way out of here. But a new board will come in, they will find that work has already been done, and they can continue with that work. So we have made it quite clear to the news department that whatever unethical orders that used to come from wherever, whether it was the board or the executive of the SABC, that it's over.
Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Welcome back to the second hour here on the Newsroom. Thursday, the 21st of September, Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Preslin.
I'm Kendall Makamad.
We'll be with you until 12 o'clock. Now, today the focus is on a very disturbing thing that's happening in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, the Moerane Commission is busy, and there's some explosive confessions that came out of that Moerane Commission from yesterday.
It's made for some riveting viewing, some of the things that have come out of that commission. Some of the utterances and revelations have been quite interesting. And we want to find out from you, what do you make of the latest testimonies at the Moerane Commission?
Let's take a look at what you are telling us. This one coming from Golani says, I'm glad that he is blaming his political party, but he should have done something to stop the corruption when he was the provincial chair.
Madlo Kwake says we only get to hear truth after ministers lose their jobs. Why? If he was still with the NC, when were we going to get informed about all of this? Hashtag say it soon.
Say it loud, say it proud. This one coming from Golani again says the commission must take Mkunu's testimony serious. Now, those are some of your comments coming through on that question, but we're also conducting a poll on a very important issue, because if the fishermen can't fish, then you can't eat. But the minister has been meeting with the fisheries communities along the coast, communities from the Western Cape, to talk about transformation and sustainable allocation of fish quotas.
Absolutely, and we want to find out from you. I mean, this topic has become quite hot of late, but we want to find out from you, how do you think government should transform the fishing industry? What should they do? We've given you a few options to look at. The first one is, do you think they should do away with quotas or maybe restrict monopolies? Or C, do you think they should support subsistence fishermen and women?
Well, we only have 97 votes in, but I tell you, you've got 22 hours left to vote. Now, this is a topical story, because if these people can't fish, then you can't eat fish on your table. So, 56% are saying we should restrict those big companies, those monopolies. 18% says support the subsistence farmers or fisheries, and 26% says do away with quotas. We'll read your comments on that in a short while. But we're also conducting or running a sports question today, Kendall. Wits is not doing too well.
Yeah, no, Wits are the defending champions. I mean, they won the league last year, and everybody was amazed at how they managed to do it finally. Well, Gavin Hunt himself clearly looking to the heavens for some guidance, because he can't understand why Wits is doing badly this season. I want to find out from you, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Maybe he's looking for divine intervention, but what are you telling us? Let's take a look at your comments on the Twitter handle.
Golani comes in as well. It says, this season, they're not playing as a unit. And the overseas recruits have not yet gelled.
This one coming in from Tobajani says they have changed the starting lineup that they used last season. Now, we also heard earlier from some of our other viewers saying that they replaced the youngsters with some pensioners with a SASA card.
Yeah, Maza the tailor-made says their problem is at the middle of the park. There's no play at all. Kolamlambo will do them better.
Well, there you have it. These are some of your comments. Please keep them coming. Read them as we continue. But right now, let's take a look at your news headlines. Gauteng schools have witnessed a number of shocking incidents in recent weeks. Now, a 13-year-old boy died after being subjected to continuous physical bullying at a school in Benoni. The Moerane Commission of Inquiry continues today with testimony from the South African Communist Party. We'll go there live in a short while. And President Jacob Zuma has called for the need to eliminate weapons of mass destruction, close the gap between the rich and the poor, and fight illicit financial outflows. These are just some of the things that the president talked about. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thank you very much. Good morning to you at home. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
Through the legs, Manzini! Oh, it's a cracker! Beautifully done in the finish of the outstanding pass!
Defending champions Bidvest Spitz's terrible start to the season continues as they slump to another defeat, this time to PSL returnees AmaZulu, who humiliate them with a 3-0 thrashing in Umlazi. And Alistair Coutier drops scrummer Francois Hochart and, as expected, sends an SOS to veteran flanker Francois Lowe. All this as Stuart Baxter announces the inclusion of Pagamani Mahlami, Dino Ndlovu and Percy Tau in the squad to face the Burkinabe next month. I'll also be bringing you a chat ahead with Stephen Mokoka, the South African 10-kilometer record holder. A little later, stay close to us in about 15, 20 minutes maybe we'll have that. But in the meantime, Elvis has got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. President Jacob Zuma has made a clarion call to world leaders to sign a treaty that seeks to ban the use of nuclear weapons. The president was addressing the UN General Assembly in New York. He also spoke of the need to resolve conflicts in Africa and for countries to honor the Paris Climate Agreement.
Day 2 of the UN debate, President Zuma took to the podium, getting straight to the point. He called on countries to sign a treaty which bans the use of nuclear weapons. A day earlier, US President Donald Trump threatened to destroy North Korea if it continues to pose a threat.
As a country that voluntarily dismantled its nuclear weapons program, South Africa is of the firm view that there are no safe hands for weapons of mass destruction.
The president also warned that if the Paris climate deal was not implemented, generations would suffer untold consequences.
We should resist all efforts to unravel and undermine the Paris Agreement.
The conflict in Libya and efforts to resolve it also getting the spotlight. President Zuma then touched on the illicit financial outflows from Africa and efforts to resolve conflicts on the continent.
We therefore welcome the UN General Assembly's adoption of the resolution on promoting international cooperation to combat illicit financial flows, which is a preliminary step towards a global architecture to tackle the scourge and impacts of illicit financial flows.
With the gap widening between the rich and poor, the situation could no longer be allowed to continue.
We need the political will and commitment from global leaders to address the challenges and obstacles posed by this untransformed structure of the global economy if we hope to achieve the goals and ambitions of Agenda 2030.
The reform of the UN, not forgotten. President Zuma's speech dealt with all key issues affecting the globe. This being a reminder to the world leaders that solutions, while hard to find, are still in their hands. Mzwande Lembeje, SABC News, New York.
Well, here at home, learning and teaching was meanwhile once again disrupted at the Klipspruit Secondary School. Residents and local ANC members clashed amid growing tensions in the area.
A prelude to confrontation. They will do nothing to us. We will show them. This is not ANC. The presence of the ANC members spiking tensions.
One of the deputy principals appointed members of the community who have not been vetted by the department to come and be invigilators because of a lack of teachers, which is quite unprocedural.
At the heart of this is that it's the department's failure to come and sort out the issues. And for that reason, when there's not enough teachers at the school, it's important that the community step up to the plate.
Okay.
This was how the news that acting Gauteng Education MEC Jacob Mamabolo was heading here was received. Residents demanded to be addressed at the gate on his arrival.
Let's go.
And police were having none of it. After several requests to have them move, he was later released on a warning. Of concern now, the conditions under which the sitting examinations are being written.
What is happening here is demoralizing. We really need to re-emphasize that. It's demoralizing because we agreed with the steering committee And the guys that are here leading this process, we signed a memorandum of understanding with them on how we're going to be moving forward.
But you remain
A series of meetings have been planned separately with the school authorities and the community to resolve the impasse. Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Klipspruit, Johannesburg.
Now, for more on what's happening at the Klipspruit West School, we are joined by the president of the Patriots for Equality, Anthony Philip Williams. He's a concerned resident there. Can you tell us about the situation there? Very good morning to you, Mr. Williams. What is the situation currently in Klipspruit?
Good morning, Elvis. It's an amazing situation at the moment. School is back to normal. All the children are back in class. We know there are reports that says that children are roaming all over the place. It's absolutely hogwash. It's not true. Children are all back into class. With 10 educators at the school is 100% under control. Children are writing exams. Ever since Tuesday, children have been writing exams. The only grades that could not write exams on Tuesday was the grade 10 and grade 11 because those exams, as exam papers were not there. They were with the teachers who went out of the school, both those that we have barred from the school, but also those who went out in solidarity.
But it seems like the parents weren't happy and some of the residents in Klipspruit West yesterday. You were there. There was ructions with the police. What happened there and what is the situation like now?
Well, there was a very unfortunate situation. There was a mob, that was organized by the local councillor in the area to come and protest against the work that we have been doing. They got a brief that says that we're not allowing children in the school and children are not writing exam. On the contrary, the school the previous day, before yesterday, was 100% under control. Between the 10 educators that are there who are committed to the children and not to their political or union affiliation, with the help of the parents, the school was on 100% in order. And the only reason why they came up there because it's a political ploy from the local ANC, and it's also political ploy from SATU.
Now, we heard the reports of unruly pupils, the drugs and the used condoms that was found in the school. How is management and also the community now dealing with this particular issue?
I think what was very unfortunate is that one of the national newspapers who came up with the story, some of that is absolutely fabricated. You must understand where it comes from. It also comes from some SATU members who brought the media onto the school to talk about the fact that kids have got using condoms. What we know, what the real story is that some of the kids use the condoms to throw one another with water. That's the only thing that has happened. Some people said that the students were having sex there, on the school. It's absurdity. There's no proof in that. What was the teacher doing when the teacher saw kids were acting in that way? And we're saying that's absolutely just all fabrication, just to brand the school as absolutely dysfunctional. We must be on record to say that the SATU teachers has been trying at length, endlessly to make sure that the school is disruptive and dysfunctional.
So you are pointing the finger at SATU, but you have 10 teachers that's currently still teaching and going ahead with the work that they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. All the SATU teachers are not there. And the school is working 100% with the support of the community.
Where to from here?
Well, this afternoon we've got another meeting with the MEC, the acting MEC, Jacob Mamabola, is coming down at 5 o'clock to come and sit down and to have a discussion. There are resolutions that we have taken yesterday in a community meeting again, and there are some stuff that we are not going to barge on. We don't want those teachers. I mean, these teachers have been abusive, calling the kids all kinds of names, including calling the community members names. We don't want them. We only want teachers who wants to work. We've been branded that this is a racist thing, but there are 5 teachers in total. We've talked about 4, but in total there are 5 teachers in particular that the community don't want them back at that school. And one of those teachers is a colored teacher. If you don't want to work at the school, we don't want you at the school. So it's got nothing to do with race.
Now, SATU has threatened that they'll pull all their union members that belongs to them in the Eldorado Park, Klipspruit area. Your thoughts on that, and will that not perhaps cripple the education system in Eldorado Park?
Well, SATU is now very clear that they're on record. Today, SATU is having a meeting in one of the schools in Eldorado Park. And guess what? They say they don't want colored SATU teachers who are members of SATU and they are coloreds. They don't want them at that meeting. Now you tell me, is this a credible institution or not? This organization has brought the entire education system nationally to its knees, and it is time that the community and every patriotic South African, irrespective of color, that we all get together, that we club together, and we take SATU on.
What is your involvement with the community as the patriotic, as the Patriots for Equality?
Well, Patriots for Equality is exactly what it says. It was born in Klipspruit West, and it is about patriots across color line, across racial line, across the country that would come together and say, enough is enough. This country has been brought to its knees by a few very greedy politicians, and this country needs to be taken back by the patriots of South Africa. And therefore we are calling on every patriotic South Africa across the country, across color lines, to come together. Let us take back the education system, but equally let us take back the governance of South Africa.
What are you proposing this afternoon to the MEC, the stand-in MEC that's coming through to Klipspruit?
Well, number one, we want a functional school. Number one. Number two, we are proposing that the MEC would put in an administrator in the meantime, because we know that the issue
But isn't there an administrator currently?
There is no administrator at the moment. This is also one of the lies that has come from the Gauteng Department of Education, where they were saying that the MEC, Panyaza Lesufi, said that he's immediately sending an administrator into the school. He's going to send in a disciplinary team there. They will be at the school. And nothing has happened. And for more than 3 to 4 weeks, we've been begging and bending over and asking the DDG, Rufus, please, let's sit around the table, let's resolve the issues. They just rejected our call.
Mr. Williams, all the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Now, there you have it. That was the president of the Patriots for Equality, Anthony Philip Williams, here in studio, talking to us about the situation on the ground in Klipspruit. Now, breaking news now. Gupta bank interdict application was dismissed with cost. The Bank of Baroda can now go ahead with the Gupta company's accounts closure by the end of September. We'll keep you updated on that story and bring you some more information on it a little bit later. You don't want to miss anything. You don't want to move away from your television. You do not want to touch your remote. This is the Newsroom. Let's go back now to our theme today. Remember what we're talking about. We're talking about fisheries and, of course, subsistence fishers, as well as the industry as a whole. Now, protest in Hout Bay is not only confined to fishing quotas, but, as you heard earlier, it's also about houses and infrastructure development in the area. A key aspect of the Imazamo Yeto housing protest has been social media, and Hout Bay's two most popular Facebook pages, the Hout Bay Organize HBO and Hout Bay Complete, have been flooded with insights and ideas. Now, some are good, some are not so good, they say. Their respective administrators, Matt Mercer and Steve Belcher, have been especially busy ensuring that language and opinion are kept within the guidelines and have not split over into hate speech. Matt Mercer is also an estate agent who have worked in the area for almost 30 years. He joins us now in our Cape Town studio. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Very good morning to you, Elvis.
Now, Matt, as an estate agent in the area and the community leader, what do you make of the violent protests in Hout Bay last week?
So the protest last week was particularly about fisheries because of the proposal to cut their quotas. But as you say, it wasn't just the fisheries, it was also then blossomed into housing and service delivery protest as well. I think that these protests have been coming for a while. And if you think that in the 30 years that I've been there, have been very few protests in Hout Bay. So most of Hout Bay stands in solidarity with the protesters.
Mm-hmm. If they stand in protest, we also saw running battles and, of course, the protests happening there, vandalizing private and even public property. What is the situation with regards to that, and is there perhaps a criminal element that's playing a role in this?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Elvis. There is unfortunately a criminal element in that area, and a lot of the things that we've seen on camera of the violent protests are not even fishermen and some of them we can see are not even from Hout Bay. So yes, you've definitely hit the nail on the head there.
Now, as an estate agent, you've been in Hout Bay for more than 30 years. How would you classify the community in Hout Bay, consisting of the very poor and sometimes super rich? We heard earlier from a resident and a fisherman in the area that it's very difficult to actually stay in Hout Bay because the property prices are escalating.
Well, yes, I mean, Hout Bay is a very large community now, over 12,000 properties. And I always like to say that Hout Bay is almost a microcosm of South Africa, because it's one of the few areas, certainly in Cape Town anyway, that's got people from everywhere. We've got very rich, we've got very poor, we've got middle class, we've got upper middle class, lower middle class, all sorts.
Are the poor accommodated, though? Because it seems like that seems to be a problem.
So it's very encouraging that government and City of Cape Town are making huge steps towards that. It is a problem, and it is something that we're all cognizant of. But City of Cape Town are busy putting over 400 million rand into trying to upgrade the infrastructure in the poorer areas. They've already put in several million over the last 10 years anyway. But this huge project that's coming up now is perhaps what's escalating some of the tensions while people jostle. But yeah, so over 900 new units in Imizama Yetu. There's also been several new blocks of flats in Hungberg. So I think that this is what we're experiencing at the moment are growing pains, because of all the stuff that's coming, the positive stuff.
I just want to go back to when we started this conversation, because today we're talking about the quotas and of course the poor communities that are suffering, and of course the multinationals that are gaining most of the quotas. What are some of the main grievances in that Hout Bay area regarding, number one, fisheries, as well as the housing and land and infrastructure development that we have?
Well, I think the fishermen have been using the sea, as you said earlier, to put food on their plates for decades now, and we see the big corporates getting the majority of the quotas. We see them being forced to poach because they have less quotas. You know, a kilogram of perlman will put 300 rand on the table. Incidentally, that same kilogram will sell for 4,500 rand in China. So these are the sort of challenges that they have, and of course they're aware that their stocks are getting depleted as well. But what other choices do they have? We feel quite strongly that government needs to work more closely with the community that have been there first, long before the corporates. Educate them, help them, assist them.
Now, you've also been involved with social media, Facebook particularly, the Hout Bay Organized HBO and the HB Complete. Tell us more about that, and why is that an outlet or perhaps a starting point for people to communicate?
So Hout Bay Organized started as just a sort of information resource for people. It's now almost 20,000 members. And it quickly grew from just being an information resource to being an opportunity for the three different communities of Hout Bay to actually talk to each other in a way that they'd never been able to talk to before. So you alluded earlier that sometimes it can be quite a mammoth task to administrate a group like that, because people come with their own fears and perceptions. But it's been overwhelmingly positive when you look at how we've learned how to adjust the tone, how we've learned how to talk to each other, and how we've learned to avoid trolls, people that are there just to make trouble. So those are some of the challenges. It's been a massive tool for collaboration and peace in Hout Bay, and we hope that that's going to only get better and better.
Now, the ocean economy has been identified as one of the potential economic drivers for the country as a whole, but potentially, what are the future prospects for Hout Bay?
So there are various options for Hout Bay. We do have one of the few working harbours left in Cape Town, the Hout Bay Harbour. There's chances for that harbour to be developed, and hopefully to focus on micro enterprises in the harbour. So already we see a lot of tourism coming to the harbour. There's about 6 or 7 tour buses that come every day to the harbour. Of course, those tour buses are discouraged when there are protests, so that gets put on hold. So our options are to encourage the tourists to come back, to work on micro enterprises and to really help the people that have been there for decades.
Matt, I thank you so much for your time and joining us in our Cape Town studios.
Thank you so much, Elvis.
That was Matt Mercer. He's an estate agent who has worked in that Hout Bay area for over 30 years, giving us his take. And of course, up next is your sport with Kendall Makamate.
The world's best over the iconic 10-kilometer race are gearing up for what promises to be a titanic tussle to cross the finish line first. The inaugural FNB Durban 10K City Surf Run set for the 8th of October boasts in the men's race IAAF silver medalist Joshua Cheptegei from Uganda, Kenyan Morris Gachaga, who recently set a blistering pace in the 12K in Cape Town, and South Africa's own 10-kilometer record holder Stephen Mokoka. He's here with us this morning to talk about this 10K City Surf Run out in Durban. Good morning, and thank you very much for giving us this time ahead of the race.
No, morning, and thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about this race and your preparedness and what you're thinking about how you're going to go into this race?
Firstly, I can say I'm excited getting an invitation to go run in Durban. It will be my first time, I think my second time in Durban, because the first time I ever ran in Durban was like at 28 minutes, 34 seconds, but that's way back. So I'm very excited about this inaugural race, especially with the strong field, with the guys that, East Africans. So I'm very excited about it, and I'm looking forward for it.
Now, you're up against a classy field, some very classy runners, Cheptegei, you're up against Morris as well. How do you feel about your opponents to try and get to number one?
I'm very excited. You know, as an athlete, the most important thing you always say, I wish the race could be fast, because that's what I'm hoping for. Because, this year, I started horribly, actually, in the beginning of the year, but everything is picking up now. Because I think the last time I ran a 10K was in Manchester, where I suffered like the last 2Ks. I was going to run somewhere around a 28 low, but my endurance was not good at that time because I was coming back from injury. But now I'm excited because everything is running smoothly. I ran my season's best as well in the 10K in London 4 or 5 weeks ago. So I'm very excited about it. All I'm hoping is that we can work together. Everyone will be on the field so that we can try to get the faster time.
Now, can you tell me something about the 10K itself that you just ran out in London? It's not so long ago, was it?
Yes.
When did you do that race?
It was on the 4th of August.
Okay, so now in terms of that race, what kind of time did you run? Because I know like your best time is at 27.34, is it?
No, 27.40.
40, that's where it is, yes. And what did you run out in London?
In London, I ran my season's best, 28.14. It's the best time ever in this year. That's why I say my season started very bad, but I'm glad that it's picking up. So I'm excited about the race, actually.
In terms of preparation for Durban, you are happy with where you are right now in terms of what you ran in London, and a couple of weeks' time will be in Durban. Are you happy with that trajectory?
Yeah, I still have like 3 more weeks to go before Durban. There's still a few things that I need to do as an athlete and as a coach, because we sat down and we realized that my shape was perfect for London, but I suffered like my last 3 kilometers. So we had to work on that. So we had to adjust the mileage a little bit. So we just, before this race, we trained like for 2 months with the very same shape, because the speed work is good, the strength is good, but the only thing that I was suffering from was my mileage, because we did not want to put more mileage in my program after I came back from injury. So I say now everything is perfect, and I'm very excited.
You talk about injury and the processes that you need to go through. I want to touch on that just now. But first up, I do believe that when you announced that you intend to break your own record, your own 10-kilometer record out in Durban, the sponsors got busy immediately and upped the ante, put in some serious money for the possibility that somebody would break the South African 10-kilometer record, as well as a possibility of somebody breaking the world record. How does that make you feel?
I'm excited. You know, when I said that, I was sitting at home, I'm like, I owe it to South African to, I always run like a 27 minutes on the track. So most of the young generation, they've witnessed a 27 at home. So I told myself, you know what, let me try to challenge myself in terms of my best ever 10K outside the country, but let me try to do it at home. So for me, my first goal is to try to break my own record. If I won't be able to do that, I'll be happy if I can be able to run a sub 28 minutes, because I believe I owe it to South Africans. I want South Africa to witness that from one of their own athletes in the country.
Yeah, and I think we'd all enjoy that. I think a lot of people are looking forward to the Sterling Field that you're going to be part of. What does this race do for the sport, you think? Because, I mean, every morning you drive to work or you drive somewhere, there are people out in the road, either jogging or running, as in to take part in marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks, serious races. What do you think this series of city surf runs does for the sport?
I mean, me as an individual, I believe they say sports is a social cohesion. It brings a lot of people together. If they can be able to bring people from Uganda, from Kenya, from Ethiopia to our country, from Switzerland, it does good for our sports. I mean, people saw Joshua Cheptegei running well against Mo Farah a month ago. So being able to see him and then seek advices from him, it will be a great thing for South African, especially those people who want to see themselves doing well outside their country. So I can say something like this, it's good for our sports, especially like shorter distances. I believe Still Hotels and FNB, their collaboration, they're doing a very good thing for our sports, because they started with 12 kilometers in Cape Town, and then they went to Joburg with Joburg 10 kilometers, and then now they are spreading to Durban. I hope they spread to the entire country and they keep on getting more sponsorships to come and work with them, so that they can keep on inviting these guys to come and run in South Africa, so that some of the people who admire them, they can get their autographs, they can get their... They can share their experience with them so that they can see them in person. You know, the most important thing is when you get a chance to see a person that you admire, that you respect, that is a role model to you. If you see them in person, you get some motivation. So I believe this, the platform that they are using, even spreading the entire country, taking the event to the people, it's a very good thing. And I hope that, and I pray that they spread the entire country, all the 9 provinces. One day when we see in our country we are having these FNB races for the entire country, most importantly, the shorter stuff, because of one main thing. Every time we see city marathons, we see ultra marathons. In South Africa, we talk one thing, ultra marathons. But for young people, if they get the platform, they get this thing, they can realize that you need to start somewhere. You have to start in the 10 kilometers, you have to start in cross country, you have to start somewhere else before you become a bigger man, when your muscles are matured enough to attempt the marathon. So I can say I wish they can keep on doing the very same thing, because this is good for our sports.
No, fantastic. Well said. I'm sure they're going to love the punt that you've just given them. You mentioned something about getting to meet people one admires and aspires to be like and emulate, and people who do great things. One of the reasons I love my job, you're here talking to me. You're the South African 10-kilometer record holder. You've also represented the country on so many different occasions and done it well. So I love my job just because of that. Earlier on, you mentioned something about the rehab that you need to go through when you've coming back from injury and so on and so forth. Who foots the bill for that kind of thing? Who foots the bill for you to go to Durban, for you to go to London, Manchester, all these other races that we see you on TV on sometimes? How does that work for you?
I mean, if you touch firstly in terms of injuries, in South Africa we're unfortunate. An athlete has to stand up for themselves when they're injured, which is a tough thing. But I mean, we love our sports anyway. So I do this because I love it. So I'll make sure that I'm healthy and strong. So like I'm bouncing back from an injury, I had to look after myself. I have to pay for my own physio. I had to drive from Pretoria, coming to Joburg. Sometimes I drive around the country trying to get the problem that I had. So that's a tough thing with us South African runners. But we wish one day something can happen, that the South African Sports Federation, they can look after us, because we represent them when we get the opportunity, when they give us an opportunity.
Yes. And when you win, it's for all of us. But when you're trying to sort yourself out, you're on your own.
Yeah, I believe this is sports. This is not teaching. This is not, nursing. This is not you being a lawyer. You know, sports is one thing. Today you are at the higher level. Tomorrow you are at some point. That's so true. We have to work like that. It's like a graph. You cannot be at top of the world while using your human body to be there forever. At least with the brain, you can get a rest. But if you, when we train, we put our body through hell. I'm sitting here. I just finished my 30 kilometers in the morning, and then I still have another session to do. So I had to sacrifice to come here and have a word with you guys with regard to this, because I believe it's going to be good marketing for us, especially they use me as a brand for South Africa. I'm a South African record holder, so if they use me, maybe it can bring a lot of sponsors maybe in our sports. Secondly, to touch to the part of us going to races, it depends who are you working with. I'm currently working with Nike, As you can see, I'm trying to wear a Nike cap.
I can see it says Nike right there, London 2017, Nike, nice swoosh.
Yeah, and then I'm also working with Boxer in a local club. That's a local club I'm working with. They are looking very well after me. I think Boxer started this year because I saw what they do for the sports, especially for the shorter stuff, especially for the young juniors and the youth. They are not like those mega clubs that are looking after, I mean, people going to commemorate 2 Oceans. I don't know. It's good they are doing that for elderly athletes or the elite athletes for their level. But what are they doing for the ones that they want to replace those ones when they go out? Because this is the sport. Somebody has to come out. But if they are not going to look after those people, it's very going to be tough. So for me, I can say I'm very happy with the companies that I'm working with, and I hope they keep on working with me the very same way they've been working with me. And I hope a lot of sponsorships comes on board to come and help our athletes, because we want to see our sports growing. We want to see, I mean, South Africa producing more weights, more casters, more Kani, you know, in our sports.
Yes.
So it will be a great honor for us.
Yeah, well done. No, thank you so much for coming through, and I really do appreciate you giving us this time this morning. I was aware that it's somewhere in the middle of your busy training schedule, preparing for Durban. When do you plan to get to Durban?
You know, I left with 3 weeks of training, but basically it's 2 weeks of training. Okay. So anytime, if I have to go to Durban, even if I have to go on Monday, I will be happy to sit by the coast. Yeah. I mean, like, when it's hot, I can go on the sea and then just have a swim, maybe if I have to, and also or just to relax sometime, because here it's very hot.
It's very hot.
It's very dry. So.
It's nicer when it's hot when you're next to the beach, isn't it?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah. No. So I thank you very much for coming through. I really hope the best for you. I hope you do break that 10K record, because like some 300,000 rand on the line if you break the South African record, and half a million if you break the world record, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
proper money.
It's good money, actually, and then I'll be happy. The only thing, like I said earlier, my first aim, my best time, if I break it, and then my second goal is I want to give it to South Africa, and I want to give South African, I want them to witness 27 minutes on the road.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Mokoka, South African, the 10-kilometer record holder, chatting to us right now about his preparations for the Durban 10K City Surf Run, where they promised that the fastest time ever run in South Africa, or at least for 2017, will be run. But here we are talking possibly national record, possibly world record. 8th of October is that race. Make sure that you stay close to us, because we'll be bringing you all the updates leading up to it. To link.
With the stories of abuse from the other 8, but they haven't been ready to pursue any angles. They've offered their support, they've offered the comfort to the 8s, and it's been an amazing journey.
It feels like your heart actually literally sunk in your shoes.
It wasn't a long encounter. I think at the time I froze.
The way the criminal justice system deals with sexual violence is problematic. And I don't know, unless there's a fundamental change in many things, the way prosecutors deal with the victim in the matter.
For all investigative insights, stay tuned to Special Assignment every Saturday at 17:30.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. We have been following the Moirani Commission very closely. Just yesterday, we had Sipho Mchunu speaking about some of the activities and happenings around some of the political violence that's been happening in KwaZulu-Natal. It carries on today. As you can see in the picture behind me, we've got the SACP, we've got James Nxumalo, the former mayor of eThekwini, and his cohorts giving their testimony. Let's go there now, live.
synonymous with the traditional rural areas in the province, but could hardly hear such leading to killings. Tension emerged in Umzimkhulu immediately when it was incorporated to KwaZulu-Natal and into its politics. There was a scramble for support of this united bloc by factions in the ANC. For a long time after incorporation into KwaZulu-Natal, Umzimkhulu remained a united bloc, which was an envy of any dominant faction. Divisions started to emerge going on towards PGC of the ANC, which took place in Durban at UKZN Westville campus. I've forgotten the date. This division became so pronounced on moving closer to highly contested provincial conference of the ANC in November 2015. The divisions were along the lines of the factions going towards the 8th conference of the ANC in November 2015. These factions were seen to be along the envisaged preferences of the leadership of the ANC going to the National Conference of 2017 in December. Umzimkhulu, like eThekwini region, have become an envy of any faction that wants to emerge victorious in the race for leadership of the ANC in 2017. Umzimkhulu have also very strong SACP structures which constitute what we call Greater Umzimkhulu District. There is a very strong working relationship between the SACP and ANC in the sub-region in Umzimkhulu. After the ANC Provincial Conference of November 2015, the leader of the region of the ANC was elected to the PEC of the ANC in the province. That opened up for a new contestation for the leadership of the region, which generated serious tensions in the region.
Please pause, Mr. Mthembu.
Zwane, for the records, it's capital Z, W-A-N-E, Numalo, capital N-X-U-M-A-L-O, Umzimkhulu, U, capital M-Z-I-M-K-H-U-L-U, eThekwini, E, capital T-H-E-K-W-I-N-I.
Please proceed.
The tensions generated were seen as a result of the contestation for loyalty of the possible emerging leadership. There were two contenders for the leadership of the region. One happened to be a member of the Communist Party in good standing, and that was Comrade Khaya Thobela. Going to conference, faction will post their slates in the social media. The same happened with Herikwala region. A slate was posted with Comrade Khaya Thobela as a candidate for the regional secretary. The same slate was then reconstructed, replacing Comrade Khaya Thobela's picture. In his place, a picture of a dog was inserted. Some days later, the same slate again was tampered with the dog now replaced by a candle. Comrade Khaya Thobela was then assassinated later after this picture was changed for a dog and then for a candle. There was also a hit list that was in circulation, which has the name of Comrade Thobela and other leaders, mostly from the party, being in the list. Two suspects have since been arrested, and one have been released due to insufficient evidence. I think I've learned this morning that another one has been released, and we are not surprised. Subsequent killings took place in Umzimkhulu, which involved Duduzi Shibas, who is a PR's councillor in Umzimkhulu, who was associated with Comrade Tobela's late, and there have been no arrests so far. On the 13th of July 2017, around 18 hours at a place known as EBC Village, another 3 Umzimkhulu municipality councillors were ambushed and shot with assault rifles. The councillors were the late Comrade Sindiswa Makaka. Surviving were Comrade Jabu Mzizi and Comrade Nomsikelo Mafu. The late Comrade Sindiswa Makaka was earmarked for the position of the Deputy Regional Secretary in the upcoming Harry Kwala Regional Conference of the ANC. He was also a former General Secretary of the ANC Youth League National. What needs to be noted about these killings in Umzimkhulu is that there's always been a relative peace in the sub-region of Umzimkhulu or in Umzimkhulu, while being active in the ANC under Eastern Cape, and soon when they were incorporated into the politics of KZN, tensions developed, which subsequently developed into violent killings, as we have seen in the last few months. Moving to Enchangwe, not Enchanga. Enchangwe is one of the classic examples we can present in this commission. Enchangwe have been very small, have been a very small peaceful community built around a missionary settlement in the west of Durban, just outside Hillcrest. It is an area that was once engraved by internecine violence, which was largely attributed to state-sponsored black-on-black violence of the 80s. Going back to the history of the area, it is claimed that the area was an epitome of peaceful cohabitation until some communities were settled in the area from Gwanjobogas. This community was removed from Gwanjobogas for what was claimed as a violent behavior towards its neighboring homesteads. Initially, there were peaceful coexistence between the new community and the existing one. Later in the 80s and early in the 90s, this was to change when what was seen as part of a state-sponsored black-on-black violence, there was an outbreak of violence between the two communities, which was attributed to tension between the ANC-aligned traditional communities of the area and what was then branded as the IFP-aligned settled community from Gwanjobogas. The violence continued until it was brokered through intervention by peaceful structures that were convened at that time. Comrade Willis Mkun and Comrade Ntlantlangiti can explain better on how the peace was brokered in Enchangwe. Tensions resurfaced again when there was a contestation for a ward councillor in 1996.
Please pause, Mr. Mthembu.
For the record, Kaya Tobela is spelled as capital K-H-A-Y-A, Tobela, capital T-H-O-B-E-L-A. Wala is capital G-W-A-L-A. Duduzi Shibase, capital M-D-U-D-U-Z-I, Shibase, capital S-H-I-B-A-S-E. Jabu Mzizi, capital J-A-B-U, Mzizi, capital M-Z-I-Z-I. Sindiswa Makaka, capital S-I-N-D-I-S-W-A, Makaka, capital M-A-G-A-Q-A. Nomsikelo Mafu, capital Nomsikelo, Mafu, capital MAFU. Enchangwe, Chairperson, I'm not sure whether I have to spell as it is written on the document, or I have to spell Enchangwe as an isiZulu.
As isiZulu.
As an isiZulu, Enchangwe will spell it as E.
Instead of C.
E capital NTSHANGWE. Kwanjobokazi will be capital KWA, capital NJOBOKAZI. Tlantlangidi will be capital NHLA, Ngidi, capital NGIDI.
Thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Mtembu.
Two families were seen to be in contestation for the leadership of the community of Enchangwe, which is now Ward 4 in eThekwini municipality. And these families were the Ngumalos and the Shozis. A compromise candidate was then preferred by the name of Comrade Jethro Ndlovu, not Domagute. Jethro Ndlovu. After Comrade Jethro Ndlovu retired, to ensure that a truce is maintained in the area, it was agreed that Comrade Mngcwabe, I think it was not, it was, there's supposed to be a correct, it was Comrade Sikni Mngcwabe should take over as the councillor. But after it was agreed that Comrade Sikni Mngcwabe should take over as the councillor, then Comrade Boyshows challenged Comrade Sikni Mngcwabe. And there was a fighting on that day, a serious fighting, up to a point where Comrade Sikni Mngcwabe decided that no, to avoid any escalation of violence, he will stand back and allow Boyshows to continue. So that's how it happened. So this has been the case until the recent local government of August 2015. The tension started with the leadership contestation for ANC eThekwini region. The tension then manifests itself back in the ward. There was different preferences between the then mayor of eThekwini, Comrade James Numalo, who happened to be a candidate for the chairmanship of eThekwini region, and Comrade Boyshozi, who was supporting a different candidate opposed to James Numalo's candidacy. A tension therefore developed when most members were seen to be supporting the then mayor, Comrade James Numalo, were denied their right to renew their ANC membership. This was seen as a deliberate act to deny Comrade James Numalo's ascendancy to chairmanship of the region. It was also seen as a ploy to maintain Comrade Boy's influence in the ward. There were some mass actions that ensured demanding the intervention of the higher structures of the ANC in the area. Enchangwe is one area where the SACP have strong structures on the ground. These SACP structures were seen to be a strong influence on getting support for Comrade James Numalo in the ANC structures of the ward, of course, due to dual membership. Therefore, most members of the ANC who happened to be SACP members were barred or frustrated from participating in the ANC activities. This led to the majority of the people of Enchangwe, a stronghold of the ANC, being marginalized in the branch of the ANC and its activities. This led to many members of the ANC throwing their lot with the structures of the SACP. This then developed to a serious tension between the ANC and the SACP. The process of selection of ward candidates for the Ward 4 community of Nchangwe intensified this tension. It is believed that the then councillor of the ward, Comrade Boy Shozi, had his preference of who had to succeed him as the ward candidate. It is claimed that unfortunately the community of Nchangwe had different views. This tension is seen to have led to the assassination of one possible candidate for the ANC, one Comrade Dladla. When the ward conference to nominate the candidate was held, the majority of the people of Nchangwe, many of them who believed that they were denied deliberately the membership of the ANC, were left out of the process. On the day of the nomination of the ward candidate, a large alternate meeting was organized under the banner of the SACP. It was the day when gunmen invaded that meeting and fired at random at the crowd that gathered at Kwandokweni, not Kwandolane, sport field, where Philip Dlamini was killed and many were injured. There were arrests after this killing and suspects are out on bail. One suspect happened to be a relative of Comrade Boisho's. Subsequent to that killing, a series of what were seen as political killings emanating from this tension followed. On the 24th of January 2016, Comrade Bongan Hlachwayo was also killed. He was found in a car which was shot at during the meeting at Kwandokweni Sports Field. In August 2016, Comrade Nontsikelelo Blose, who was a highly active member of the SACP and a witness to the murder case of the 24th of January 26, was also killed. On the 13th of December 2016, Comrade Mlum Tunu was murdered while he was at his home after receiving threats, and no arrests have been made so far. Again, on the 13th of December 2016, Comrade Nonhlanhla Ngcobo Mkhize, who had a boyfriend at the Panegeni area, which his boy shows this stronghold, was also killed after she had also received multiple threats and no arrests have been made on her murder.
Please pause, Mvelas.
For the record, Shozi is spelled as capital S-H-O-Z-I. Mncwabe is capital M-N-C-W-A-B-E. Dladla is capital D-L-A-D-L-A. Kwandokweni is capital K-W-A, capital N-D-O-K-W-E-N-I. Dlamini, capital D-L-A-M-I-N-I. Bongani Hlachwayo, capital B-O-N-G-A-N-I. Hlachwayo, capital H-L-A-T-S-H-W-A-Y-O. Nontsikelelo Blose, capital N-O-N-S-I-K-E-L-E-L-O. Blose, capital B-L-O-S-E. Mlu Mchunu, capital M-L-U. Mchunu, capital M-C-H-U-N-U. Nonhlanhla Ngcobo Mkhize, capital N-O-N-H-L-A-N-H-L-A. Ngcobo, capital N-G-C-O-B-O hyphen, capital M-K-H-I-Z-E.
Thank you.
I think there's another. The area, Panegeni.
Panegeni.
Thanks, Chairperson. Panegeni will be spelled as capital P-A-N-E-K-E-N-I.
Proceed, Mr. Mtembu.
The SACP again lost another member on the same date of December 2016, Comrade Londiwe Ngcobo, who was selectively killed while she was walking with her friends. Another SACP activist, Comrade Zamo Ngcobo, was shot at on the same date of the 13th of December 2016, and Comrade Zano Shozi was arrested and denied bail. After that attempt to kill Comrade Zuma Ngcobo, another attempt was made to kill him, but consequently his mother sustained gun wounds on her leg and it had to be amputated. Lastly, Comrade Zuma Ngcobo, who was also shot at on the 13th of December 2016 while he was on his way to a taxi rank, and no arrests have been made. There have been many failed attempts to reconcile the structures of the SACP and the ANC in the area, which receive a very cold reception from the leadership of the ANC in the region of eThekwini. In the Cleveland hostel, the violence of Cleveland hostel dates back to the days of apartheid state-sponsored black-on-black violence. The first agitation of violence at Glebe was the violence of what was categorized as the North and South violence. By the North and South, it means if you come from Potchefstroom, you're coming from the South. If you are coming, say, from Mpanga in Show, then you're coming from the North. Soon this violence was to develop into an IFP-ANC clashes. Eventually, Glebe Hostel became an ANC stronghold. There have been numerous peace interventions in the hostel, of which we have lost count, but the killings have continued with few breaks. Both the ANC and the SACP undertook numerous attempts to broker peace in the hostel. These killings will manifest themselves differently at different times. They will be attributed to political clashes between ANC and SACP. If that is resolved, they will turn out to be the killings attributed to scramble for rooms or beds rights, up to even taxis or tax shops. There have also been allegations of police collusion or involvement in the violence at the hostel. The SACP have lost a number of its leaders in the killings, which may not necessarily be attributed to political killings. The SACP strongly believe that the killings in Cleveland's hostel are orchestrated by an organized syndicate operating through or even behind some political leadership of the hostel or organized official structures of the hostel. This organized syndicate primarily objective is to capture the Glebe hostel as a monopolized market. The difficulty in stopping violence and crime in the Cleveland's hostel is also attributed to a lack of proper security and administration of the hostel. The SACP strongly believe that the eThekwini Metro Council could have done better in providing proper administration and security, infrastructure which could have frustrated or even curtailed any intention to commit crime in the hostel, and that would have saved many lives. Among the leaders that the SACP have lost through killings at Cleveland's hostel, Comrade Martin Tesani, who was the treasurer of the district, Comrade Zoto Sibiya, who was once the chairperson of the district of the SACP, and we know that the list of the killings have risen up to 93. I think it was almost in 1 year. Numerous other leaders of the party have fled the area due to threats of violence. Even Comrade Zoto Sibiya was no longer a resident of hostel when she was killed, but was only visiting relatives and friends.
Please pause, Mvelas.
For the records, Londi Ngcobo will be spelled as capital Londiwe, Ngcobo, capital Ngcobo. Zamo Ngobo will be spelled as capital Z-A-M-O, and Ngobo will be spelled as the same, like the first Ngobo. Zamo Shozi will be capital Z-A-M-O, Shozi capital S-H-O-Z-I, and Zamo Bengu, Zamo will be spelled as the same, and Bengu will be capital B-H-E-N-G-U. Desani will be spelled as capital D-E-S-A-N-I. Zodwa Sibiya will be capital Z-O-D-W-A, Sibiya capital S-I-B-I-Y-A.
Please proceed, Mr. Mtembo.
Another type of killings is the state killings, and this form of killings in the province can be categorized as state killings. Among the killings that can be categorized as state killings are the Kwamakuta massacre, where the killings were said to be masterminded by the SANDF. The Escaloni killings, where largely the ZP were used as the killing machinery. The Gwashobashobane massacre, again where the police were directly linked to the outbreak of those mass killings. The Hammer State political killings, which was orchestrated by the state using police and state-trained hit squad. The other killings are linked to Katomena group of the police, which is yet to be tested in court. In all these state killings, it is not only the involvement of the police, but the implication of state intelligence in these killings. It must also be submitted in this commission that numerous allegations of state security apparatus being used are made in this current political killing and factional battles in the alliance and the ANC. In fact, these kind of political killings are tending to be cutting the pattern from the apartheid methods of terror unleashed to our communities. Another very serious phenomenon in political killings cover-up is what is seen as false arrest and disinformation. And I must emphasize, you will largely see that as part of trying to avoid public pressure. The police do that quite often. On conclusion, we just got some recommendation that we can table in this commission. One, that the program, there have to be a program to fight the culture of violence, which have been inculcated in the communities of KwaZulu-Natal. Two, we are of the strong view that we need to get rid of the tender system. Three, we also strongly believe that there have to be a review of the councillor selection method and criteria. There have to be a program to depoliticize security structures, mainly the police. Our police are highly politicized, and that is not a good thing to live with. 5, introduce special unit in the police force to deal with political killings. 6, there have to be a commission of inquiry on using or abuse of state intelligence in private or factional battles. State intelligence are mostly preoccupied with factional battles. That's why things are falling apart. 7, which may not be in your copies.
It's fine.
So we strongly believe that the state budget need to be biased at fighting poverty, inequality, and unemployment. So that will be our submission, Honorable Chairperson. We thank for the time you have given us.
Thank you. Can we have the interpretation and then we'll take it from there?
For the record, Kwamakuta will be spelled as capital K-W-A, capital M-A-K-H-U-T-H-A. Kwashobashobane will be capital K-W-A, capital S-H-O-B-A-S-H-O-B-A-N-E. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Yeah, maybe I should have also asked my colleagues to add what I might have left.
Chairperson, may we propose that we take a 15-minute coffee break and the delegation will confer. If there's anything to add, they can do so after the break so that they will have time.
In other words, I think you are proposing that what other members of the delegation might have wished to add can be presented through Mr. Mthembu as the sworn representative.
Yes, it's just for them to confer.
Yes. Thank you. We shall adjourn for about 15 minutes. Thank you.
Today, on Rights and Recourse, we will unpack the new traditional court model.
The idea of the bill is not to over-regulate, to basically set the principles.
The most important aspect of this bill is that it understands that customary law, by its nature, is consensual, that I have a right to affiliate, I have a right, therefore, to opt in, and I have a right to opt out.
The opt-out provision is basically one that you've got to respect the court in the sense of if you've been summoned, you've got to tell the clerk of the court at least that you're not willing to attend.
The challenge that I would like to throw to the Department of Justice, it has to come up with mechanisms of ensuring that people who exercise their right to opt out or to opt in are not in any way victimized.
Hashtag Rights with Dumila Mates on legal issues every Sunday at 2 o'clock Central African Time.
An exciting opportunity and an absolute must for those with the spirit of adventure is a Kruger Park night game drive.
The railway station itself is already a sight to behold and offers gracious colonial-style buildings and serves as the departure and arrival point for all train journeys.
I wanted to dress with my best color. Being awarded to do the Serpentine Pavilion is the highest commission in my career, and I wanted just to come and show me with my best clothes, and that is blue.
Catch Trends Travel every Sunday from 12 to 1 for all the global travel and leisure trends.
Welcome back. Now, of course, a little bit later, we'll go back to the Moerane Commission to pick up where they left off. But meanwhile, the Gupta family has lost a court bid to stop the Bank of Baroda from closing down their last remaining bank accounts here in South Africa. The High Court in Pretoria dismissed an application brought by the 20 Gupta-owned companies to halt the account closures. The application was for an interim relief to stop the Bank of Baroda from closing the family's business and loan accounts at the end of September. The family wanted the court to grant an interdict to delay the closing of accounts until December the 7th, when the main application was scheduled to be heard. Counsel for the Gupta family argued that the Bank of Baroda would not suffer any reputational harm between now and the time of the main application. They also repeatedly indicated that roughly 7,500 employees will suffer prejudice, as the family would not be able to transfer money to their pay the people working for the Gupta bank companies, so that salaries could be distributed to the accounts if they were closed. Meanwhile, President Jacob Zuma has made a clarion call to world leaders to sign a treaty that seeks to ban the use of nuclear weapons. The president was addressing the UN General Assembly in New York. He also spoke of the need to resolve conflicts in Africa and for countries to honor the Paris Climate Agreement.
Day 2 of the UN debate, President Zuma took to the podium, getting straight to the point. He called on countries to sign a treaty which bans the use of nuclear weapons. A day earlier, US President Donald Trump threatened to destroy North Korea if it continues to pose a threat.
As a country that voluntarily dismantled its nuclear weapons program, South Africa is of the firm view that there are no safe hands for weapons of mass destruction.
The president also warned that if the Paris climate deal was not implemented, generations would suffer untold consequences.
We should resist all efforts to unravel and undermine the Paris Agreement.
The conflict in Libya and efforts to resolve it also getting the spotlight. President Zuma then touched on the illicit financial outflows from Africa and efforts to resolve conflicts on the continent.
We therefore welcome the UN General Assembly's adoption of the resolution on promoting international cooperation to combat illicit financial flows, which is a preliminary step towards a global architecture to tackle the scourge and impacts of illicit financial flows.
With the gap widening between the rich and poor, the situation could no longer be allowed to continue.
We need the political will and commitment from global leaders to address the challenges and obstacles posed by this untransformed structure of the global economy if we hope to achieve the goals and ambitions of Agenda 2030.
The reform of the UN, not forgotten. President Zuma's speech dealt with all key issues affecting the globe. This being a reminder to the world leaders that solutions, while hard to find, are still in their hands. Mzondi Lembeje, SABC News, New York.
Former African Union Commission Chairperson Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is likely to be sworn in today as a Member of Parliament. Parliamentary sources have confirmed that this will happen today. There has been speculation that President Jacob Zuma could reshuffle his cabinet to accommodate Dr. Dlamini Zuma after she has been sworn in as an MP. Dlamini Zuma and ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa are seen as the frontrunners to succeed President Zuma as the ANC president in December. Troubles facing the ANC were in the spotlight during a panel discussion in East London last night. ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize and his predecessor Matthew Sposa formed part of the panel. It was part of the launch of a book called 10 Principles of Philanthropic Leadership by Ace Ngobo.
A high-powered panel giving a candid gloves of introspective analysis of the governing party. Each of the panelists an active member of the party. They all acknowledge challenges facing the centenary-old movement, but were quick to point out that the problems are firmly with individuals within the party.
The people have lost trust in the ANC. And once there's a low level of trust, we begin to lose votes, and we have begun to lose votes. We have lost 3 key municipalities in this country, which is a shame.
It is possible to get the leadership who will be able to strengthen our organization and emerge as leaders that society will look up to, and that will also be able to respect and generate confidence to be able to be leaders of society.
The author of the book says it's not a witch hunt against the current leadership, but says the rapid decay of moral leadership and slate politics is what prompted him to pen this book.
We need better leadership. We need leaders that are going to stop caring for their own needs and the needs of their own families and friends, but start caring about what the people out there need.
This is the first of 9 provincial book launches to take place across the country. Onatipin Mwase, SABC News, East London.
Now, Gauteng schools have witnessed a number of shocking incidents in recent weeks. Now, a 13-year-old boy died after being subjected to continuous bullying at a school in Benoni. Police have opened an inquiry into the Mooifontein school syringe pricking saga.
A shocking SABC expose. It's seen swift action from school and provincial authorities.
The SGP has commenced with the disciplinary process, against the 4 learners, because we understand that the one learner brought the syringes, but then it was the other friends, 3 who joined her, and they then played, the doctor or medical practitioner.
Similar to the syringe said to be used by the pupils to prick over 20 grade 4s. A Gauteng press statement says the 11-year-old brought it from home and it was used by a relative who had a hormonal condition.
Those syringes, it's not your normal syringes that you will see with a needle, that you can say, oh, this is quite dangerous. They are very unique, understandably so, because they are for a different cause.
So dangerous that it's left schools reeling. Some suffering from severe side effects from the month-long regimen of ARVs. Among them, this man's 9-year-old daughter.
What if whatever that is in those needles remains dormant until her child or adult life? Who is going to take the blame?
Childline says there is possible recourse for parents of affected children. Gauteng Education says counselling started on Monday. Many, like this father, will have to await the outcome of the syringe laboratory tests, as well as whether their children are in the clear. Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Kempton Park.
Over 5% of the world's population, or 360 million people, has disabling hearing loss.
Sometimes babies are born that can't hear. Yeah. And especially during the pregnancy, where there's some infections that a mom could pick up that can actually transmit that damage to the ear, and those children can be born deaf.
I don't look at myself as a disabled person. I looked at myself as Bruno, not with a disability. I don't have barriers. I use South African Sign Language because I have a language.
And unfortunately, we need to talk to the teenagers and the young people out there. I know it's now fine to go to the concerts and listen to that loud music, but you're actually damaging those little hair cells all the time, and you're not going to pay the price now. You're going to pay the price when you turn 45, 50, and then all of a sudden we're going to see the damage done.
For all your health news, join Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10.
Fishing remains an essential activity for people living on South African coastlines. It's also a very controversial issue. Most fishing communities, especially small-scale as well as subsistence fishers, feel that the current legislation and policies are not doing enough to empower them or to correct the past imbalances. In 2015 and 2016, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries embarked on the 2015-16 fishing rights allocation process, which is currently underway in 10 fishing sectors. Now, last week, a protest by fishermen over fishing quotas turned violent in Hout Bay. 2 people were injured, including a 14-year-old boy. The chairperson of the South African United Fishing Front, Pedro Garcia, is in Cape Town in our studios there to talk to us about the challenges in the fishing industry. Mr. Garcia, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much.
First and foremostly, tell me, what is the main reason behind the protest that turned violent?
The protest that had turned violent in Hout Bay, although it was initiated by the fishermen in that area, had been compounded by a number of other local issues, service delivery, housing, had almost piggybacked on what the fishermen had initiated in Hout Bay. It wasn't a fishing protest per se at the end of the day. It was just compounded by other local issues in Hout Bay.
But talk to us about the challenges facing the fishing industry, especially subsistence fishers. Fishermen, rather.
I think there has to be a clear understanding of how the South African fishing industry really works. It is most probably one of the most complex industries, not just in Africa, but in the world, in terms of the division of rights allocations. We have what they call a nearshore and offshore sector, which is commercial. Then we have an interim relief dispensation, which is currently in effect, it's a ruling from the Equality Court in 2007. Then we have subsistence fishing in KwaZulu-Natal and in the Eastern Cape. And then we also have a small-scale fisheries policy, which has been gazetted in 2012 and must still be implemented. So we're sitting with a wide range of challenges. Each sector has its own policy. Each policy has its own set of permit conditions. And then, of course, you're now dealing with court orders, which is now compelling the department to bring about interim relief until such time that a small-scale policy can be implemented. The challenge now, of course, is that the majority of the fishing rights allocations has already taken place, which means that key resources within the fishing industry which are required to create a small-scale policy which could make economic sense to our people is almost impossible now. There are a number of species which are key to this basket, which will now be tied up for a good couple of years, which means that there will be another waiting period. Now, the department has acknowledged that they may have missed an opportunity, but that does not remedy the situation. We have burning issues which needs to be addressed immediately. It has now been more than 10 years that people have been waiting for the small-scale policy to kick in. So what we are saying is that we need to find immediate solutions for some of the burning issues, and those burning issues include abject poverty within our communities, the social ills associated with that abject poverty, and taking it forward then. But in the meantime, until we can find a sustainable solution and implement a policy which can make economic sense to our people, we need to put, in that interim period, we need to put something in place which is going to make economic sense to our people.
What is that something that needs to be put in place in the interim in order to make economic sense for the fishermen?
Well, we do have a court order that will remain in effect until the small-scale policy kicks in. So what we are saying is that we need to perhaps boost what we have already allocated to our people in the interim relief dispensation. Also in the subsistence fishing in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, we think there is an opportunity to boost that allocations without compromising our resources. I think one of the most important things in our memorandum and in our fight to bring about justice is that we also extremely concerned about the state of our natural resources in terms of having those resources available to future generations.
Should there be one policy in place that could accommodate commercial as well as subsistence as well as small-scale fishermen in the country then, sir?
Well, once again, going back to the complexities of the South African fishing industry, when you look at nearshore, You have nearshore fishers, we have interim relief fishers, we have fishers who have now been identified and verified for the small-scale fisheries policy. We have subsistence fishers, and perhaps once you just, for the purpose of this particular interview, is to cluster them all as nearshore, because all the participants come from the same communities, the fishing communities around our coast. So you have people who are in one town, who some of them will have nearshore commercial, some of them will have interim relief, others will be sitting with subsistence. So it's really a case of broadening divisions if we start allocating in one particular sector within that cluster and not looking after the other, because it's within the same community, and these divisions also causes a lot of unnecessary friction within our communities.
Now, on Sunday, you had a meeting with the minister. What came out of that meeting, and is that perhaps looking at the long-term solution?
Well, we were cautiously optimistic coming out of that particular meeting with the minister. And he has also already indicated that he will launch an immediate investigation into fronting and into the unfair practices which have taken place over the past few decades within the fishing industry. The minister has also committed himself to eradicate corruption within the department, because that was also one of the concerns we had raised within our memorandum. He has also now given us the go-ahead to form certain committees that can address key issues within the fishing industry. But the challenge, once again, is that we are dealing with immediate issues that needs to be addressed.
Is that perhaps, from the minister's perspective, or even from your perspective, a solution, that interim solution that you are seeking in order to make sure that it's socially and in fact financially viable for the communities?
Well, we have to find a solution for our communities. It's been years now, and we are dealing with a social structure which is collapsing because of the high levels of unemployment. When rights are taken away from our people, and it is the only source of income, and there is no alternatives within those communities, we are setting our communities up for failure, horrible failure. And this is exactly what is happening now. Now, we may argue the fact that there may not be enough resources. We may argue that we have initiatives like Pakisa, the maritime or the marine economy now, as oceans economy, as they're calling it now, and other alternatives that can be created. And in other words, in areas where you don't have alternative sources of income, is actually to create not a basket of species, but an income basket, so that they complement each other, so that they eventually you sit with an income for a normal family that can make economic sense. Just as an example, in the Eastern Cape, many people still have large tracts of land, but they are subsistence farmers. We need to add to that subsistence income, because as much as we're trying to uplift our communities, government at the same time also are delivering on their mandate in terms of providing basic services, housing, running water, electricity. Mm-hmm. But clearly somebody has to foot the bill as government delivers. And if you have a subsistence existence, there is no ways that you'll be able to foot that bill. So you're sitting with another challenge then. What we are saying is there are opportunities. All we're asking government is to listen to the NGOs, listen to the people that's at the grassroots level, listen to the fishermen. The indigenous and local knowledge has been ignored for too long. It's been regarded as being anecdotal. It's not being added or integrated into scientific knowledge in our country. There's that breach between the science and the communities, and we have to build a bridge there between arrogance and ignorance, where scientists view our communities as being ignorant, our communities are viewing the scientists as being arrogant. But collectively, we need to move forward, because then we can base a lot of the decisions around our resources on wisdom, a combination of knowledge and a combination of local and indigenous experience.
That makes a lot of
which we are not doing at this point in time. There are solutions out there. We need government to listen.
That makes a lot of sense to me, sir. But as the South African United Fishing Front, what is the next step now?
Well, we are dealing, one of the key issues that has also been highlighted within our memorandum is the current allocation of the West Coast rock lobster. Why there's so much emphasis on that is because it is one of the key species. It's a high-value species like abalone, which could contribute towards a basket of species which can make economic sense. Our challenge with that is that if the FRAP allocation is concluded, then it will take 15 years for us to remedy that. Communities simply don't have the money that big industry has to take government to court. And we don't want that type of confrontational approach to the challenges that we face as South Africans. What we are saying to the minister and to the DDG, excuse me, please, is that you do have an opportunity now. It has not been concluded. Suspend the West Coast rock lobster. Give it to our people. Take it away from the big companies. They've had it for decades. They've had the West Coast rock lobster. They have a number of other allocations as well. The argument is always from industry side that there will be job losses. The minister had argued successfully in the Viking case that although Viking may lose jobs in the hake inshore sector, they would be able to absorb it in other sectors in which they have also been allocated fishing rights. And because of those fishing rights, they are then in a position to absorb any job losses. The same applies to the West Coast rock lobster, which is now in the possession of the larger companies. Excuse me. We do not want to compromise the cutting of the resources. It is absolutely critical. We've ignored the 34% cut in West Coast rock lobster the previous season. There's now a proposed between 53 and 59% cut. We simply cannot ignore it because even coming from a grassroots level, coming from the local fishermen around our coast who are harvesting West Coast rock lobster, there is an acknowledgement that there's been an annual reduction in the harvesting.
Yes.
So much so that when people do go out to again harvest West Coast rock lobster now, their operating expenses exceeds their income for the day, which creates a further problem and exacerbates the poaching issues because
Yes.
people are now poaching in order just to operate viably on a daily basis. So we are not disputing the fact that our resources need to be protected one way or another. What we are saying is there is still an opportunity if we cut from the big companies and keep the nearshore people as they are, then we will not have an issue.
Yes.
Big companies must come to the party. Not only do they own other fishing rights, but they also manipulate and monopolize the markets. They are at the higher end of the value chain.
Mr. Garcia?
It is the marketers and the big companies who are literally sitting with the bulk of our South African fisheries resources. And just to put it quite plainly, 90% of our marine resources are being owned by big companies, while 90% of our people who are supposed to benefit from these resources are sitting with 10% or less.
I thank you so much for your time, sir, and good luck with the negotiations.
Thank you so very much.
That was the chairperson of the South African United Fishing Front, Pedro Garcia.
The Law Society has slammed notices sent to 4 universities to jack up standards or risk losing their LLB courses. The Council on Higher Education issued a stern warning to the universities to conform within 6 months.
I think it will affect the university. I think outside the law faculty, there's a funding issue.
It's been 112 years since Enoch Sontonga died as a relatively unknown composer, choir master and teacher. But today his legacy lives on through his greatest composition, Nkosi Sikeleli Afrika.
For all your news updates, stay tuned to Your World from Monday to Sunday.
We take an in-depth look of all your stories of the day across the world.
Last month, Mkhwebane said that the bank had failed in its duties to protect the public by not ensuring that ABSA repaid an apartheid-era bailout given to the failed bank, Bank Corp. The rand fell nearly 2% on her remarks.
My effort, in my opinion, is going to be to build a Zimbabwe that I believe in, as opposed to remaking a Zimbabwe of the past that I cannot do anyway. So I'm absolutely clear on this.
We need to start showing more commitment by government that they are committed to working with business, and therefore that should start to stimulate confidence, and with confidence comes investment, and with investment hopefully comes growth.
Stay tuned to Primetime News every day from 18 hours.
Welcome back. My name is Kendall Makhamate. It's now time to bring you a little bit of what's happening in the world of sports. We start off with talking about Cricket South Africa and how they and the Board of Cricket for Cricket in India have announced that the itinerary for India's tour of South Africa will consist of 3 test matches, 6 one-day internationals and 3 T20 international matches. The first test match is at Newlands starting on the 5th of January, and the rest of the dates and venues are yet to be confirmed. Cricket South Africa also announced plans to host the first ever 4-day day-night test match to be played at St. George's Park against Zimbabwe starting on Boxing Day. Now, the new coach has certainly got his work cut out for him with what's arguably South Africa's busiest season ever coming up. Looking forward, he had some interesting observations to make about some of the players available to him.
Aidan Markram didn't play in England, but I've heard a lot of really good things about him. So I'm looking forward to going up to Super Sports Park and seeing him play. You know, KG Rabada has been an outstanding talent. The England players really respected Temba Bavuma, the way he played this year in England. The pitches, if you speak to Alistair Cook, I spoke to him at the end of the series and he said, look, this has been some of the hardest batting conditions that he's seen for a long time in England. And the way Bavuma played, his solid technique and stuff like that, the England bowlers, especially Jimmy Anderson and Broadden, were very, very impressed with him. You know, so by the end of the series, they were going and patting him on the shoulder, saying, "Look, really well played. You stuck at it. You fought." Which is what we hope that will continue to happen. You know, I hope that series, especially in the way he played, will give him a lot of confidence going forward.
Right, the ABSA Premiership champions Bidvest Wits are yet to win a league match this season. They suffered a crushing 3-0 loss against AmaZulu in Umlazi last night. Meanwhile, Golden Arrows are at the top of the log after beating Platinum Stars 1-0 at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium in Phuket. In other matches, Kaizer Chiefs and Baroka beat Maritzburg United and Bloemfontein Celtic 2-0, respectively.
KwaZulu-Natal Midlands win.
Maritzburg United were looking to maintain their 100% unbeaten run in the league when they entertained Kaizer Chiefs in Pietermaritzburg. Under the guidance of Fadlu Davids, the team of choice is a marvel to watch. The players, however, have to work on their finishing, which could affect them going forward. United lost 2-0 against Chiefs last night thanks to Gustavo Paez's brace.
And the follow-up is from Paez.
Amakhosis' second goal came against the run of play, and it was curtains for the home side.
Yes, he scored! He snapped up the loose opportunity, and Kaizer Chiefs are riding their luck here tonight, but they've doubled the lead.
Itumeleng Khune's brilliance won him the Man of the Match award. He starred in as many matches.
God is great. I went to the hospital because of the chest infection. I was hungry for some game, for some action. I came back, and for the past 3 games, I've been enjoying my football.
After suffering a 4-1 loss against fellow Debenites, Golden Arrows on Sunday, AmaZulu bounced back in style.
Waited for his teammates to catch up, and in the end,
stage. It's Michael Morton with a simple click, click, and a bang to put AmaZulu into the lead.
They had no respect whatsoever for Bidvest vets in Umlazi.
Manzini looking for the 2-goal cushion. AmaZulu thunders it home.
In the second half, Rulani Manzini grabbed the praise.
Through the legs. Manzini! Oh, it's a cracker! Beautifully done in the finish of the standing pass.
That was before Michael Morton was shown a straight red card for retaliating after he was allegedly spat at by Kabadinho Mango.
He did something. He spat at the opponent.
I've worked with Coach Kevin before at Platinum Stars, so I'm still want to learn more, you know, because he's been into the game for a long time. So every time at training, he helps me. We do our finishing after. So all glory belongs to God.
After 5 rounds of matches, the Clever Boys are still found wanting as they have only 2 points and are second from the bottom of the log. They will host Orlando Pirates on Saturday at 6 p.m. Mtutu Zindlovu, SABC News.
Okay, so let's bring it all home for you, just to understand what all this means. Log standings after 5 rounds of matches in the Absa Premiership. This is where it sits right now. Golden Arrow is still sitting at the top of the table on 11 points. Goal difference, really the difference between them, Baroka FC and Orlando Pirates. All 3 on 11 points. We then have Kaizer Chiefs, who moved upwards, sitting on 8 points. Their goal difference, as you can see there, it's just a mere 3 goals to the good for them, though. Maritzburg United slipping downwards after those results. SuperSport United up, AmaZulu up, doing fantastically well after having brought their way back into the PSL. Mamelodi Sundowns still in the top 8, although they just slipped downwards. They only played 3 matches. As you know, they've been busy with African CAF duties. Now we move on to the second half of the table, the bottom half of the table, where there's also been just as much movement, but a lot of the Reds going downwards. Cape Town City FC moving downwards, 4-4, 0 goal difference, 6 points for Benny McCarthy and his men. Bloem Celtic moving down as well, sitting on 5 points. Also on 5 points are Chipa United, but they're staying exactly the same as they were in the 4th round. Interesting enough, from Ajax all the way through to Polokwane City, got 4 points apiece. Goal difference, the major difference there, all in the negative, as you can see, between Ajax, Free State Stars, Polokwane City. Bidvest Wits, the defending champions from the 2016-27 season, after 5 matches, have won 0 matches, drawn 2, and taken 3. And that's where we're going to leave it with those log standings for now. In fact, we've got a few tweets that we want to share with you with regards to what's happening with Bidvest Wits, because a whole lot of people have been wondering what is happening with Bidvest Wits. They just won the league after years and years, decades of trying, first time since their history. And this is what you're saying to us about what you think is happening at Bidvest Wits. Sizwe comes in with Wits is struggling from fatigue given the highly competitive nature of last season's games. There's more intensity in this season. There's Sizwe trying to find some reason to what's happening. Mr. Andrews says their crown is too heavy for them. And must be. The mantle weighs heavy, does it not? Onuka Christian says low commitment and interest. Sports is you give your best, you get reward. There's no magic in sport. Interesting enough, Bafana coach Stuart Baxter is talking about approaching the last 3 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifiers without the belief that the team can qualify will be tantamount to dereliction of duty. Baxter was speaking after announcing a 25-man squad for next month's qualifier against the Burkinabe, with Dinon Ndlovu, Percy Tau and Pakamani Mahlambi all included in the team. The Englishman also weighed in on reports that a group of players partied in Durban after they qualified against Cape Verde, the one that they didn't win, saying that it's unacceptable.
More changes in the squad were introduced up front, where Pesitao, Dinon Ndlovu, Pakamani Mahlambi and Lebogang Mutiba, who plays straight in France, have made the cut. With Bafana at the bottom of Group D, even the most optimistic fan would have accepted the team won't qualify for the tournament. But Baxter hasn't thrown in the towel yet.
We have 3 games to play. We have 3 times 90 minutes plus. And we need to put ourselves into a position where every one of these games is a World Cup final. Because that's what it is for us. We need to go at it with every ounce of energy we have, and we have to make sure that we believe that we can win those games.
With Burkina Faso to challenge FIFA's decision to have the Bafana-Bafana-Senegal match replayed, Bafana's qualification chances could be affected by what happens in the boardroom. But Baxter will only concern himself with the performance of the team on the pitch and getting positive results.
You identify what can win us this game, and you go for it. And there's no excuses. You know, there's no, but hang on a second. If I was worried about that Burkina Faso appeal going through, and then not in my world.
Meanwhile, Baxter has dealt with reports that some Bafana-Bafana players partied in Durban after their qualifier against Cape Verde on the 5th of this month.
I'll make sure that the players that represent the country don't think it's acceptable to overstep the mark. When we're professional athletes and when we are professionals representing our country, we don't do that.
Bidvest Vets, Reef Forsler and Cape Town City's Tamsang Mkize have also been included in the squad for the game against Burkina Faso. The match will be played at the FNB Stadium on the 7th of October. Pesinka to SABC News, Johannesburg.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's take a look at what's happening for today and for tomorrow in terms of your weather. We did have some isolated showers, especially here along the Western Cape. It is clearing for the first part of the day. Later on, we're expecting them, especially in places like the Free State, into the Eastern Cape, and later on in the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Otherwise, a partly cloudy day is expected for the rest of KZN province into Mpumalanga, where we did see some fog patches, but they're expected to clear before midday. The interior expecting clear skies over Gauteng northwest and most of Limpopo province, while it is still clear over most of Zambia, Botswana and Namibia. Angola in the northern parts is expecting some isolated showers, especially in the extreme northern parts later on today. Otherwise, clear skies for the rest of the continent. Into tomorrow, we're still expecting just isolated showers here along the coastal areas of Western Cape and Eastern Cape, and over the interior, expecting isolated showers, but this will be much later on in the afternoon, and at around about 12 o'clock going around after midday. And looking at clear skies are expected for the Limpopo province, northwest, northern Cape, and of course some partly cloudy weather is expected for the southern parts of Gauteng province. Otherwise, clear skies in Mozambique, Zambia and Angola. We do have a warning for high FDI over the central parts of the country. This includes places like Uppington, the whole of Northern Cape, into parts of the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, including the western parts of Free State and Northwest Province. Your temperatures later on this afternoon: 32 for Bloemfontein, 26 in Durban, it's a bit warm, while Komani is very hot at 36 degrees Celsius. Springbok is also very hot at 30 degrees. Only partly cloudy weather is expected in Springbok, while Cape Town also sees partly cloudy weather for today with a high of 22. In the north, like I said, clear skies for most of Botswana into Zimbabwe as well, with highs of 29 if you're in Bulawayo, while Botswana stays hot, especially in Maun. It's been hot for the past couple of days and it's going to continue being hot. The eastern coastline, we're looking at places like Beira, expecting a high of 22. Cooler weather is expected in those areas, especially in places like Maputo, including places like Quilimane. Into the islands, we're expecting isolated showers in Victoria with a high of 30 in Moroni and partly cloudy weather. And looking at the DRC, we are expecting partly cloudy weather for most of the DRC, very isolated showers for the DRC, but the rainfall for today is expected in places like Kigali and of course the western part of the continent of Africa. Libreville peaking at 28 degrees, while Luanda is peaking at 27, expecting most of the day to be partly cloudy. There is a possibility of some thunderstorms much later on this afternoon. In the north, we're expecting some isolated showers, especially here in the central parts, but it's starting to become less in intensity. But tomorrow, we're expecting more intense storms, especially in places like the coastal areas of Nigeria into Mali. Those areas are expecting very strong coastal storms, while over the interior and for Sudan, we're expecting only partly cloudy weather, with temperatures peaking at 38 if you're in Cairo, and Khartoum at 42 degrees. Looking at Agadez peaking at 39 degrees, very hot conditions into the interior places like Mali at 33, Niamey at 35. I'll leave your weather here for now. Remember, everywhere you go, take the weather with you.